Battle City Finals. Yugi, Joey, Kaiba, Mai, Bakura, Marik, Odion, and Ishizu are the 8 duelists who have qualified. First things first, to determine who duels who in the quarterfinals, we're going to start with a bingo lottery machine draw. The placements are as follows. Game 1, Yugi vs Bakura. Game 2, Joey vs Odion. Game 3, Mai vs Marik. Game 4, Kaiba vs Ishizu. Let's go through the entirety of the Battle City Finals, and while we're at it, let's analyze each of the duels. Let the Battle City quarterfinals begin. The duel begins and Bakura goes first. He draws and his opening hand consists of the Portrait Secret, the Gross Ghost of Fled Dreams, Headless Knight, Dark Necrophere, the Dark Door, and Dark Spirit of the Silent. Bakura starts by summoning his Portrait Secret to the field in attack. Then he ends his turn. You'll notice that with all of the other cards that he had in his hand, this is not the most optimal play. This move and all the following moves he's about to make are all a part of his plan. However, they are all still misplays, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's just continue with the duel until it's important. It's Yugi's turn and he draws. His opening hand consists of Gazelle, the King of Mythical Beasts, Magic Formula, Collected Power, Card Destruction, Defusion, and Exile of the Wicked. Yugi starts by summoning his Gazelle to the field, and then immediately enters his battle phase. He attacks the Portrait Secret. It is destroyed, and Bakura takes the first damage of the duel. Yugi sets his Magic Formula face down and ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn and he draws Dark Sanctuary. Despite its impressive 1,800 defense points, Bakura summons his Gross Ghost of Fled Dreams in attack mode. Bakura ends his turn. If you're wondering why he didn't activate Dark Sanctuary here, it's because Dark Sanctuary doesn't work unless Dark Necrophere is in the graveyard. This card is very different to the real life version if you're comparing it to that, but we'll talk about it a bit later as well. It's back to Yugi, and he draws Gamma the Magnet Warrior. He summons it and enters his battle phase. He attacks first with Gamma, destroying the Gross Ghost. He then attacks directly with Gazelle. After the damage, Yugi ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Destiny Board. Bakura yet again makes an insane play. He summons his Headless Knight in attack mode, despite its 1700 defense. And yet again, Bakura simply ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Monster Reborn. Unable to summon any more monsters to go for game, Yugi attacks with Gamma to destroy Headless Knight. He then attacks directly with his Gazelle. Bakura is left with only a morsel of life points left. Yugi ends his turn. But wait a minute, yes, observant viewers will have noticed. Yugi could have won this turn very easily. He has 2 choices for victory here. 1, I'm just going to activate Monster Reborn, bring back one of those monsters of Bakura's I destroyed, and now just attack with all 3 monsters for game. Or scenario 2, oh, I have this Exile of the Wicked spell card in my hand. Its effect lets me destroy all Fiend monsters on the field. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll destroy Bakura's Fiend monster on his side of the field, and then just attack with my other 2 monsters for game. I'm sure you're all asking, well, there's got to be a reason why he didn't do this play. There is. It's the plot. This is one of those situations where we're not really supposed to know Yugi has these cards in his hand. The show doesn't show you that he has them. Unless you reverse engineer the duel, that's how you know he has these cards in his hand. Unfortunately, the only reason he didn't use these plays is because Yugi would have won too quickly in the duel. So I'm going to have to say Yugi made a huge misplay right here. It's Bakura's turn and he draws Earthbound Spirit. Bakura finally reveals that Yugi has played right into his trap, as he wanted those monsters to go to the grave, because now, with 3 Fiend-type monsters in his grave, he can banish all 3 to special summon his ace monster, Dark Necrophere. For those at home, this is what Dark Necrophere looks like in the dub, whereas in the sub, this is what she looks like. I don't think they liked the spooky baby, especially when it melts a bit later, but yeah, there you go. Now with a decent monster on the board, surely Bakura will attack and do some damage, right? Well, no. Instead, he sets his Destiny Board face down and Dark Spirit of the Silent and ends his turn. We're barely 7 turns into this duel and we have so many misplays. Let's go through what Bakura did wrong, shall we? And see if we can explain it. First, why didn't he summon his monsters into defense to achieve this exact same result? Save him some life points. Well, Kaiba does answer this in the sub. He says Yugi might be hesitant to attack face-down monsters, so he wouldn't be able to enact his plan. However, this is extremely flawed logic. Almost never in the history of Yugioh do people choose not to attack face-down monsters or defense position monsters in fear of something bad that might happen. It happens every now and then, but it's so rare. So I don't buy this at all. So this is a misplay Bakura. Bad play. So with this in mind, Bakura just might as well have played normally. Just summon some monsters into defense. If you can beat over any monsters, go for that instead. And then use Dark Necrofear as a backup plan. It's a much better play, really, isn't it? In fact, speaking of all of this as well, if Yugi would have drawn one more monster, which is very likely, I might add, Bakura would have lost. It's not like he's set in back row to keep himself safe. So if Yugi would have just drew literally anything with more than 450 attack points, this duel would have been over right there and then. And then the final thing. Why didn't Bakura attack with Dark Necrofear and at least destroy one of Yugi's monsters? Well, the reason that he's done that is because he's going to do a play in a minute with Dark Sanctuary to get a spooky ghost on the field. That spooky ghost is going to possess one monster on Yugi's side of the field, but Yugi won't know which one it is. With more monsters on the field, it will make it harder for Yugi to deduce which monster is possessed, and theoretically should result in him attacking himself instead. And while I don't personally agree with that, because if you've got two monsters on the field, it's literally 50-50, whereas if you've got three, it's also less likely for him to choose the one with a ghost in. I don't know. It feels like bad logic as well. Oh, but wait a minute, there was one more misplay. The biggest one of them all. Bakura had Destiny Board last turn. He didn't set it last turn and then activate it this turn. Why did he do that? Why didn't he just do it last turn? Well, this is an easy one again to answer. The plot. Because if Bakura would have set that card face down, he would have won. Yeah, if I have to give him a defense for why he didn't do it, he didn't set it face down so that Yugi was guaranteed to attack his monster. He wouldn't be hesitant. But I think that's silly. He might as well have just set it. So, yeah. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Dark Magician Girl. He tributes his Gazelle to summon it, and then activates his face-down equip spell, Magic Formula. This raises the attack of Dark Magician Girl by 500. Now with enough attack points, Yugi enters his battle phase and destroys Dark Necrofear. This leaves Bakura with a mere 150 life points left. However, Bakura reveals this too was all part of his plan. Since now Dark Necrofear has been sent to the graveyard, he can activate its effect, which lets him immediately activate the field spell Dark Sanctuary from his hand, deck, or grave. Since it is in his hand, it activates straight from there. Now, while this field spell is active, Bakura can select one monster on Yugi's field and equip it with the Ghost of the Dark Sanctuary. The monster equipped is not revealed to the opponent. If the opponent declares an attack with a monster equipped with a ghost, then the attack is negated, and half of that monster's attack is dealt as damage to Yugi, while half is added to Bakura's life points. During each of the opponent's standby phases, he can choose a new monster to equip the Ghost of Dark Sanctuary to. And that's not all this card does. While Dark Sanctuary is face up on the field, Bakura can use his monster zones for his spell and trap card zones as well. However, to keep this card on the field, Bakura must tribute one monster during each of his turns. And if Dark Necrofear is not in the graveyard, then this card will destroy itself. With all that in mind, Yugi attacks directly with his Gamma, attempting to go for game. However, it is revealed it was the one possessed by the ghost. And so, the attack is negated. Yugi takes half of Gamma's attack as damage, while Bakura gains that much instead. Yugi ends his turn. I hate to do this, because this is a Captain Hindsight kind of moment. Technically, you would only know to do this play if you knew what Dark Necrofear was about to do. However, it's another moment where Yugi could have won the duel here, because he's got Exile of the Wicked in his hand, which destroys all Fiend-type monsters on the field. If Yugi would have just summoned his Dark Magician Girl, activate this spell, destroy Dark Necrofear's shenanigans would have gone off. He would have put the Spooky Ghost into Dark Magician Girl. As long as he didn't equip that Dark Magician Girl with the spell card, he could have attacked directly with Dark Magician Girl. The attack would have been redirected back to him. He would have taken damage. Bakura would have gained life points. However, with the Gazelle, with 1500 attack, he could then attack directly for game. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws his second copy of Dark Spirit of the Silent. Bakura starts by activating Destiny Board. Due to its effect during each of Yugi's end phases, Destiny Board will activate a new spirit message from Bakura's deck. When 4 of Yugi's turns pass, it will spell either final or death, depending on if you watch the double the sub. And when that happens, Bakura will instantly win the duel. And yes, we covered it a little bit earlier, but had Bakura activated this 2 turns ago, he would have 3 letters F-I-N so far on the board, meaning in 2 more turns, he'd win the duel. And fun fact, had he done that, Yugi would have absolutely no way of stopping this play. Oh well. Anyway, Bakura activates the Dark Door, making it so that both players can only attack with 1 monster each turn. Bakura summons his Earthbound Spirit and immediately sacrifices it for Dark Sanctuary to stay on the field. He sets one of his Dark Spirit of the Silent face down and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Karibo. The standby phase occurs and Bakura equips his ghost to Dark Magician Girl. Yugi summons Karibo to the field in defense. At this point, Bakura hasn't explained to Yugi the full effects of Dark Sanctuary, and so, thinking that the ghost is only possessing Gamma, Yugi attempts to attack directly with Dark Magician Girl. However, this is where Bakura reveals he moved the ghost into her instead, and so the attack backfires, and Yugi's life points decrease, while Bakura's increase. And following this, due to the Dark Door, Yugi can't declare another attack, and so is forced to end his turn. As he does, Destiny Board activates. Spirit Message I is placed from his deck onto the field. Fun fact, by the way, in real world tournaments, if your opponent asks, you have to show them your card so they can know what your card does. Obviously in the anime, they don't really do this. They just tend to explain the card after the fact kind of thing for dramatic effect. Now I'm going to give Bakura a misplay here, because if you don't actually have to explain your cards to your opponent in a duel, Bakura should have just never told Yugi what this card does. And he might have been under the impression that all of his monsters were possessed, and if any of them attacked, he would take damage back. So this would have made him not want to attack. Not guaranteed, but possible. So I'm going to give that a misplay to Bakura. He should have kept it to himself, I guess. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Sangan. He summons it and immediately tributes it for Dark Sanctuary. Sangan's effect then activates, allowing Bakura to add a monster with 1500 or less attack from his deck straight to his hand. He adds Dark King of the Abyss. Bakura ends his turn. Just gonna throw it out there, Bakura should have absolutely attacked and destroyed Karibo. I'm pretty sure he knows that Slife of the Sky Dragon is in Yugi's deck. Yugi needs 3 monsters on the field to summon it. At the very least, just get rid of Karibo for now, and then he can just tribute it afterwards. Same result, but 1 less monster for Yugi. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Big Shield Gardener. The standby phase occurs, and Bakura chooses to equip the ghost onto Dark Magician Girl again. Yugi summons his Big Shield Gardener to the field into defense. Now, with full knowledge of how Dark Sanctuary works, Yugi chooses to attack with Gamma. The choice was correct, and the attack is successful. However, Bakura activates his trap, Dark Spirit of the Silent. Due to its effect, he can negate an attack and instead select another monster and force that monster to attack instead. Bakura chooses Dark Magician Girl. She attacks, and since she was possessed, Yugi is dealt the damage, and Bakura's life points increase yet again. Yugi sets his collected power, and Monster Reborn face down, and ends his turn. As he does, Destiny Board plays Spirit Message N from his deck. And right here is the moment where Destiny Board would have won in the duel had he activated it 2 turns prior. So there you go. Last more mention of it now. It's back to Bakura, and he draws Souls of the Forgotten. He summons it and sacrifices it for Dark Sanctuary, and then he ends his turn. Bakura should have attacked over Karibo because Yugi's next play is pretty much going to cost him the duel. So had he destroyed that Karibo, maybe things would have been different. What am I talking about? Yes, it would have been different. He would have used Collected Power. He'd have to have used it on his Big Shield Gardener. He wouldn't have been able to destroy his Big Shield Gardener, so he wouldn't be able to get the Spooky Ghost off of the field. So it's bad play. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Berthamet. During his standby phase, Bakura equips his ghost onto Dark Magician Girl again. However, Yugi activates his face down Collected Power. This equips all equip cards onto Karibo. Since the Evil Ghost of Dark Sanctuary is classed as an equip spell, it too is equipped to Karibo. Following this play, Yugi activates his Exile of the Wicked. This card destroys all theme-type monsters on the field. The only card this applies to is Karibo, and since it was equipped with the Ghost of Dark Sanctuary, it is removed from the field. However, it will return during the next turn. Realizing this, Yugi plays his other face down. monster reborn. He targets Bakura's Dark Necrophea and special summons it to his side of the field. Now, with Dark Necrophea not in the grave, Dark Sanctuary is destroyed. Yugi attacks with Dark Necrophea. Yugi ends his turn, and as he does, Destiny Board activates Spirit Message A from his deck. However, without Dark Sanctuary, there is no space left to activate the final Spirit Message during Yugi's next end phase. It's Bakura's turn and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Jogen the Spiritualist. He summons it to the field and activates its effect. Now, by discarding one random card in his hand, he can destroy all special summon monsters on the field. Bakura discards Dark King of the Abyss. Dark Necrophea is destroyed, and since it was sent to the graveyard, its effect reactivates, replaying Dark Sanctuary to the field again. Bakura then sacrifices his Jogen to keep Dark Sanctuary on the field. He then sets his Dark Spirit of the Silent face down in one of his monster zones, and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and the final turn of the duel. He needs to draw well, because if he doesn't win this turn, he will lose during his end phase. Yugi, with all of his will and might, draws his Egyptian god card, Slifer the Sky Dragon. He tributes his Gamma, Dark Magician Girl, and Big Shield Gardener to summon it. We get one of the best summoning animations in the entire series here, and then, thanks to Slifer's effect, it gains 1000 attack for every card in his hand. Since he has 3 cards in his hand, Card Destruction, Defusion, and Baphomet, it gains 3000 attack. Bakura does a little bit of shenanigans here. He selects Slifer as the target for the Ghost of the Dark Sanctuary to equip to, despite the fact he's only supposed to do that during the standby phase, but we'll let it slide because the move fails anyway, as Egyptian god cards cannot be tributed, equipped, or be taken control of while on the field. Marik rolls his eyes at Bakura for even attempting to do this. Clearly, he should have watched my The True Effects of the Egyptian God Cards video. Shameless self-plug, I'm sorry. Anyway, Yugi attacks for game. We get a bit more out-of-duel shenanigans here. Odion appears, pretends to be Marik, pretends to transform Bakura back into his normal Bakura form so that Yugi will throw the duel because surely he wouldn't kill Bakura. I mean, I didn't realize this was a shadow game, but sure, Bakura's pretty weak and it's a god card, so okay, I'll buy it. However, to everyone's surprise, Yami Bakura refuses to do this. See, he repossesses Bakura and says he refuses to win like this and doesn't want to lose his host since he still has many plans. Yugi, now free to attack, obliterates the remainder of Bakura's life points. Yugi wins the duel. The duel begins and Joey goes first. He draws, and his opening hand consists of Swordsman of Landstar, Hayabusa Knight, Gearfried the Iron Knight, Scapegoat, Giant Trunade, and Grave Robber. Almost immediately into the duel, the wind blows all of Joey's cards out of his hand. Luckily, he manages to catch them all. Now, it doesn't appear like Odion saw any of the cards in his hand, so what was the point of this scene? Comic relief? Well, yes, but also just to showcase the fact that Joey, deep down, is kind of nervous. Though he's putting up a brave facade by saying things like he'll win on the 11th turn, which, just reflect on that for a minute. In the original Duel Monsters series, that era of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I'll win on my 11th turn is essentially a flex off Joey, by the way. And like nowadays, if you're getting to the 3rd, 4th turn, that's considered a really long duel. Times change, man. Times are crazy. Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah. Anyway, the point I was trying to make is the reason why he's nervous is he's going into this duel without his ace, Red Eyes Black Dragon. And of course, the fact he's going against what he believes to be the main bad guy of the series, who also, keep in mind, mind-controlled him and forced him to fight against Yugi, you'd be nervous as well. However, what Joey's going to learn throughout this duel is he has other powers in his deck that he can rely on, which he obtained throughout the course of the series. It's not going to help him win, really, but they're there. Kind of cool. Joey summons Gearfried the Iron Knight into attack and ends his turn. It's Odion's turn, and he draws. His opening hand consists of Temple of the Kings, 2 copies of Embodiment of Apophis, Mysterious Card, Judgment of Anubis, and the Eye of Ujat. Odion starts by activating his Temple of the Kings field spell. Now, this card's effect is annoyingly vague, and it makes what it does annoying to piece together. You see, it's mentioned in passing that this card limits the amount of spells and traps that Joey can set per turn. By how much? It's not clear. The most we see Joey set throughout the rest of this duel is 2 cards in one go. So, for the purposes of this, let's just say that this field spell stops Joey from setting more than 2 cards in a given turn. And I'll be honest, it doesn't really matter because it never factors into the duel. So I don't know why they just offhandedly gave it this effect, but whatever. There's still more effects. Now, while you might recognize this card's real-world effect of letting you being able to activate a trap card the turn it is set, it appears that the anime version of this card doesn't have that ability. So if you ever think, oh, we could have activated that trap on the turn it was set, no, that's just the real-world version. Instead, this card has the ability that Odion can remove 1 monster card in his hand from play. Then, during any of his main phases, he can pay half his life points and tribute 1 monster on his side of the field. He can then summon the monster removed from play by this card's effects. Now, you'd think that was everything, but there's also a secret ability that Odion reveals really later on, and I don't even know if it's his real effect, but he mentions it. Basically, he says that while a monster is sealed inside of the temple, the opponent can't declare an attack or use spell cards that affect Odion or his monsters. Like, he mentions it, so it must be true, but none of this matters for a good chunk of the duel because there's nothing inside the temple just yet because he has, like, no monsters in his deck. In fact, he goes into this duel thinking there are no monsters in his deck to set inside of there. Well, spoilers, the Winged Dragon of Ra has been snuck into his deck, so that's what he'll put in there later when he finds out he has an actual monster in his deck. That isn't Circuit, basically. So, anyway, that's Temple of the King's Vague's effect. Carrying on. Odion ends his turn by setting Judgment of Anubis and Eye of Ujat face down. Why didn't Odion set all of his trap cards face down? Well, he's an experienced trap card deck user. He knows for a fact that if he sets 5 cards in his back row, if the opponent activates Harpy's Feather Duster, wipes everything, that's everything gone. Obviously, he's got cards to protect them face down, but I think it's a smart move not to overcommit with a trap deck unless you know you've got protection and things like that. So I don't think he made a misplay here at all. I think playing cautiously was a good thing. Plus, he's got Judgment of Anubis face down to protect them anyway, so he's all good. I thought it was a fine first turn by Odion. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Tiny Guardian. He summons it to the field. Aware of Odion's trap-based deck, Joey decides not to attack, since he believes that Odion will have trap cards that punish him for attacking. Think things like Magic Cylinder, Mirror Force, cards like that, and it's a fair assumption to make against a trap deck. However, in this case, he would have been better off attacking. He actually would have been able to get some damage in, so he wouldn't have won, obviously, and the next turn it would have become an issue and everything, but he could have got 1 attack off for free. He overthought this one. His logic is what he's going to do is he's going to let Odion set as many spells and traps face down in the back row. Joey isn't going to attack, and so he's just going to build up his field until he's got over 4,000 attack points on his side of the field. He's then going to activate his giant Trunade in his hand, bounce all the spells and traps back into the hand, attack with all of his monsters, and essentially go for an OTK. There's a whole flash forward vision thing of that and everything. Obviously, if a character thinks they're going to do something and we see a flash forward of that play, it's never going to work out, and of course, it doesn't work out. It's a good theory though, but he should just attack. It's Odion's turn, and he draws Magic Jammer. He sets Embodiment of Apophis face down along with Magic Jammer. Odion ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Fairy Box. Joey summons his Hayabusa Knight to the field. Now, with over 4,000 attack, Joey activates Giant Trunade to return all spells and traps back to the hand. In response, Odion activates his Judgment of Anubis. This card negates a spell card and then destroys all monsters on the field. Damage is then dealt to the opponent, equal to half the combined attack of all monsters destroyed. Hayabusa, Tiny Guardian, and Gearfried are all destroyed. Joey takes half their combined attack as damage. Hilariously, Yugi in the crowd here reveals that trap cards don't just have the power to quickly turn the tables of duels. They also inflict emotional damage.
Emotional damage!
Jokes aside, my speech about how the mind games of a trap deck can make you second guess your attacks and can cause you to basically self-destruct in the middle of a duel is actually kind of true. If you've ever had experience against going with someone that sets 5 pass, kind of a nervous thing to go against, to be honest with you. It's the threat unseen. So I just thought it was a good bit of like sidebar banter we get from the crowd. So I don't know, it was quite good. Anyway, with no more plays, Joey ends his turn. For the record, Joey should have set his scapegoat face down. It didn't really matter at the end of the day based on what happens in the next turn, but a potential future that could have been, that wasn't in play, but could have been, would have protected him if he put scapegoat face down. But it didn't matter for this play. But if the hypothetical play happened, then he should have set scapegoat face down. You'll see what I mean in a minute. It's just we'll carry on. It's back to Odion, and he draws a third copy of Embodiment of Apophis. He sets the last two remaining copies of Embodiment of Apophis face down and ends his turn. Okay, so now it's worth noting, Odion could have won right here on this turn. All he had to do was make sure that he had two set copies of Embodiment of Apophis face down, ready for the turn after he used Judgment of Anubis to wipe Joey's field. Think about it, Odion was playing so that Joey would fill up his field so he could use his Judgment of Anubis to wipe the field and do as much damage as possible. Had he set two Judgment of Apophis face down, with that empty field, this turn now he could activate both of them, attack for game. In the defense of Odion, I think he thought that Joey might put more attack point monsters on the field, like higher attack. So maybe he thought one Apophis trap monster would have been enough to finish the last bit of Joey's life points off. So if I had to defend him in that way, I guess there is. And of course, there's always the hypothetical of, yeah, Odion could have won if he'd done this play, but also Joey could have kept himself alive if he set scapegoat face down a turn earlier. However, that's not true, because even if Joey set scapegoat face down, Odion had magic drain face down, which would have negated it. So the thing is, Odion literally had all the pieces in place to win on the 6th turn. Saying all that though, after looking back at the footage, I did notice that Odion states that the trap activates when Joey attacked, which makes me think, oh, maybe Apophis can only be activated after a monster has declared an attack kind of thing. If that's the case, this could affect how Odion could win earlier in the duel. Unfortunately, I can't confirm 100% whether he's just activated it after Joey attacked or whether he has to activate it after Joey attacks. So if this is the case, then yeah, Odion couldn't have won earlier in the duel, so ignore everything I've just said. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Alligator Sword. He summons it, and then sets his Fairy Box trap face down, and ends his turn. Ever noticed Joey always uses Fairy Box with Alligator Sword? I wonder why. It's Odion's turn, and he draws a mysterious card. Odion ends his turn. So this is kind of funny. Odion is just going to keep passing turn because he wants Joey to attack. Joey's going to keep passing turn because he doesn't want to attack. So it's who gets frustrated with the game state first, which is obviously going to be Joey, but it's kind of funny. Anyway, it's Joey's turn, and he draws Insect Queen. Joey ends his turn. It's Odion's turn, and he draws a mysterious card. He ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Rocket Warrior. Frustrated about how the game state isn't going anywhere, he decides to summon Rocket Warrior and go on the offensive. He enters his battle phase and attacks Odion directly. Odion, in response, uses his set trap Eye of Ujat, which redirects the attack to another of Joey's monsters. Before Rocket Warrior can attack Alligator's Sword, Joey activates Fairy Box, which protects Joey's monsters from attacks until the end of the battle phase. Neither monster is destroyed thanks to this effect. As the battle phase ends, Fairy Box leaves the field. Odion decides here to summon his 3 copies of Embodiment of Apophis, which at first I thought was a weird time to summon his monsters during the opponent's turn. However, if the case that the Apophis monsters can only be summoned after a declaration of an attack, then I guess this makes sense here. These cards are trap cards that when they're activated, they special summon themselves to the field as normal monsters, but they also are classed as trap cards, so they also have trap card weaknesses, like Mystical Space Typhoon and things like that. Joey ends his turn by setting Scapegoat face down and switching Alligator Sword into defense. It's Odion's turn, and he draws Mystical Beast Circuit. Odion moves straight into his battle phase and orders his Apophis trap monsters to attack Alligator Sword and Rocket Warrior. Joey attempts to defend himself by activating Scapegoat to summon 4 Scapegoat tokens. These tokens, by the way, they tank the attacks for the monsters and aren't classed as monsters on the field, so 2 plus 4 equals 6 monsters. That shouldn't be allowed, but because of the way Scapegoat works in the anime, It's all good. Odion is having none of this though, as he activates his set Magic Jammer, which, by discarding a card, negates the activation and effect of a spell card. Odion discards a mysterious card and negates Scapegoat. The attack continues. Rocket Warrior and Alligator Sword are destroyed. The final Apophis trap monster attacks Joey directly. Odion ends his turn. It's back to Joey and he draws Foolish Burial. He sets Foolish Burial face down along with Grave Robber. He then summons Swordsman of Landstar into defense. Joey ends his turn. It's Odion's turn, and he draws Seal of Circuit. Odion attempts to go for game. He attacks Joey's Swordsman of Landstar first. However, Joey activates his set Foolish Burial, which sends a monster from his deck to Odion's grave. He sends Jinzo. Joey then activates the effect of his Grave Robber, which lets him use or summon a card in the opponent's grave. He chooses the Jinzo he just sent, and so it is summoned to his side of the field. Now, because Jinzo's on the field, its effect activates. All trap effects can no longer be activated on the field. Also, on its summon, all traps on the field are destroyed. Since all three embodiment of Apophis are also treated as traps, they are all destroyed. Odion, with nothing on his side of the field apart from the field spell, ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Battle Warrior. Now, finally, properly on the offensive, he summons Battle Warrior to the field, switches Swordsman of Landstar into attack, and enters his battle phase. Jinzo, Swordsman of Landstar, and Battle Warrior all attack Odion directly. Sadly, since two of Joey's monsters have like next to no attack points, like he has a 700 attack monster and a 500 attack monster, why doesn't he just play some better monsters? Why would you go into Battle City with Swordsman of Landstar? I kind of get it's kind of a signature card of Joey, and he's got like graceful dice to boost it up and stuff, but like 700 attack Joey, just play something else, please. Anyway, because he doesn't play better monsters, he can't win in a single OTK play. Joey ends his turn. It's Odion's turn, and he draws Swords of Revealing Light. He activates it to prevent Joey from attacking for 3 turns. He does this hoping to buy himself enough time to find the out for Jinzo. Odion ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and he draws the legendary Fisherman. He tributes Battle Warrior to summon it in defense. Joey ends his turn by switching Jinzo and Swordsman of Landstar to defense as well. It's Odion's turn, and he draws the fake copy of the Winged Dragon of Ra. Odion sets his Seal of Circuit face down. He then uses the effect of Temple of the Kings. He seals the Winged Dragon of Ra in his hand inside of the temple. Now, whenever he wants during the main phase, he can pay half his life points, tribute 1 monster, and summon that monster to the field. All he needs now is to get a monster on the field. And I might as well reiterate because it's revealed a little bit later, but it is revealed later by Odion, in his words, that by sealing a certain card in Temple of the Kings, Joey can't attack or use spell cards against Odion. Now, this is a wacky effect that isn't really described very well, and it's unclear of exactly what he means by they can't be used against him, because Joey does use spells. He's going to use a spell in the next turn, but I guess they can't affect Odion, and they can't affect his monsters, I guess, because Joey's going to get Sword and Shield later. I'll talk about that when it comes to it, but I don't know. This is one of those duels that has kind of gone off the rails a little bit because cards aren't being properly describe their effects. Anyway, just keep in mind for the rest of this duel, Joey can't attack Odion, use spells on him or his monsters, and can't set more than 2 spells or traps at once. Basically, Joey has no chance. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Monster Reborn. He activates it to bring back Alligator's Sword. He then tributes Alligator's Sword and Swordsman of Landstar to summon Insect Queen in defense. Joey ends his turn. It's Odion's turn, and he draws Cup of Sealed Soul. With all the pieces in place, Odion activates his Cup of Sealed Soul from his hand, along with his set Seal of Circuit on the field. Now, with these 2 cards activated while Temple of the Kings is also on the field, Odion can summon Mystical Beast Circuit from his hand. Circuit is summoned to the field, however, it can't attack the turn it's summoned, and so Odion ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Polymerization. Waft a little bit of a brick there. Don't worry, Joe. I'm sure your next draw will be better. With absolutely nothing he can do in this situation, Joey ends his turn. As he does, Swords of Revealing Light's effect ends. However, this doesn't matter, as Temple of the King also makes it so that Joey can't attack. It's Odion's turn, and he draws another mysterious card. Odion enters his battle phase and orders Serket to attack and destroy Jinzo. The attack is successful, and thanks to the effect of Serket, whenever it destroys a monster by battle, it gains half the attack of the destroyed monster. Odion ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and yet again he draws another unusable card, Salamandra. With no plays yet again, he ends his turn. It's Odion's turn, and he draws another mysterious card. Odion moves straight into his battle phase, uses Serket to destroy Insect Queen. It's destroyed, and Serket's attack points increase further. Odion ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and for the third turn in a row, he draws another card that can't help him, Shield and Sword. With no plays again, he ends his turn. Now, real quick, sadly, I think if Joey was allowed to use Sword and Shield here on Serket, I think he would have won. Serket in the anime has Mystery Defense. We actually see it displayed here. So wouldn't that mean if Joey switched the last monster he has on the field, Legendary Fisherman, into attack, then he used Sword and Shield on Serket, Mystery Defense, its base level is 0, right? If Legendary Fisherman attacks into the Mystery Now attack Serket, he'd win, right? I think that's how it works against mystery stat monsters. It's just undetermined, isn't it? Like if you use skill drain on a mystery attack monster, it goes down to 0, doesn't it? So yeah, I think if he could have used Sword and Shield here, he could have won. It's a real shame that he couldn't. It's Odion's turn, and he draws another mysterious card. Odion enters his battle phase and destroys the Legendary Fisherman. Serket grows in strength. Odion ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. Joey has to draw a monster here if he wants to stay in the duel. Guess what? He doesn't. He in fact draws a mysterious card that sadly is unable to keep him in the duel in any way, shape or form. What was this mysterious card that Joey drew on the final turn? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. And so, with nothing to keep him in the duel, Joey ends his turn. It is here that Joey reveals that he knows that Odion isn't really Marik, since Odion is dueling with honor, something the real Marik would never do. This angers the real Marik, and in a panic to continue his facade, he orders Odion to win the duel with the fake copy of the Winged Dragon of Ra. I mean, personally, I would have just been like, can I just show them that I have Winged Dragon of Ra? Like, look, here's Ra, I have Ra, it's here. Please don't make me summon this because it might kill me. So with that in mind, it's Odion's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets another mysterious card. By the way, that's 6 mysterious cards I think he's drew throughout this duel, and he's currently got 5 mysterious cards in his hand. What are these? What are these things? I guess he doesn't need any protection or anything because he's like so sorted in the duel. He's like sound. This just solidifies to me that Odion is in such a winning position. There was no chance of Joey ever winning this duel, to be honest with you. Anyway, Odion wanted to win with Serket, but not wanting to disobey Marik, he instead uses the final effect of Temple of the Kings. Odion pays half his life points and tributes the one monster he has on the field in order to summon the fake Winged Dragon of Ra. Odion explains that while Egyptian gods, yes, typically need 3 monsters to be summoned, this is a special situation since Serket had absorbed 3 monsters, and so it was classed as free tributes. This tracks for me, and I wouldn't class it as shenanigans, as it was actually established. Cards like Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, well, it's made up of 3 monsters, so it can be used as 3 tributes for a card. It was established for Battle City, so it's fine. Due to Ra's effect, it gains attack equal to the tributed monster's attack points. Now, with a 5,825 attack fake Egyptian god card on Odion's side of the field, he attacks Joey directly, attempting to go for game. However, the fake Winged Dragon of Ra disobeys. Ra refuses to attack, and instead disintegrates itself. The real Ra, angered, starts raining down lightning on the 2 duelists. Both are struck. After a moment, Odion almost gets up, but fails. Joey, however, ultimately rises thanks to the power of friendship. With Odion unable to battle, Joey Wheeler technically wins the duel. The duel begins and Mai goes first. She draws, and her opening hand consists of Duname's Dark Witch, Amazon Fighter, Grave Arm, Amazon Spellcaster, Mirror Wall, and Rescue Operation. She summons her Dark Witch to the field into attack. She then ends her turn. Now, some of you might be asking, why didn't she set a bunch of those spells and traps face down? Bit of protection, you know? The optimist in me thinks that the reason she didn't do that is because she's playing cautiously. She doesn't want to risk having these cards like destroyed with like some sort of back row removal or anything like that. Pessimistically, I think it's because we're not supposed to know those cards are in Mai's hand at this point in the duel. So I think it's a simple case of we're not supposed to know they're in there, so there's no reason why she would set them face down. It's Marik's turn, and he draws. His opening hand consists of Revival Jam, Makiura the Destructor, Masked Beast Desgardius, Jam Breeding Machine, Black Pendant, and Card of Last Will. Marik summons his Revival Jam into defense. Thanks to this card's effect, it is essentially unkillable because it can't be destroyed by a battle or card effects. Well, it can, but it comes straight back to the field, so it's a nightmare to fully remove. Anyway, Marik follows up this play by activating his continuous spell, Jam Breeding Machine. Now, during each of his standby phases, he can special summon one slime token to his field into attack. However, while this continuous spell is on the field, if Marik normal or flip summons any other monster apart from a slime token, this card will destroy itself. So if you wonder why he doesn't go on the offensive with other monsters in his hand, it's simply because he's trying to build up his slime board so he has enough tributes for the Winged Dragon of Ra. Simple. With no further plays, Marik ends his turn. It's back to Mai, and she draws the Unfriendly Amazon. Mai immediately enters her battle phase and orders her Dark Witch to attack and destroy Revival Jam. Due to Revival Jam's effect, it immediately special summons itself back to the field into defense. With no way to permanently get rid of the monster, Mai ends her turn. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Pot of Greed. The standby phase occurs, and Jam Breeding Machine special summons the first slime token to the field into attack. Marik activates his Pot of Greed to draw 2 new cards. He gets Jam Defender and Remove Trap. He sets Jam Defender face down and ends his turn. Jam Defender is going to get destroyed before he can use it, but the plan with this card is when he activates this trap, it will redirect every single one of Mai's attacks into Revival Jam, which means he can keep special summoning slime tokens and they will be safe from attacks, which is their weakness. Like getting attacked into would have done a ton of damage because they have to stay in attack for 1 turn. It's a smart move on paper. Unfortunately though, it's Mai's turn, and she draws Harpy's Feather Duster. She activates it to destroy all spells and traps Marik controls. Jam Breeding Machine and the face down Jam Defender are both destroyed. Mai enters her battle phase and attacks and destroys the slime token, dealing the first damage of the duel. She ends her turn by setting Mirror Wall face down. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Melkid the Four-Faced Beast. He summons it to the field. Now, with Melkid and another monster on the field, he has met the summoning criteria for his Masked Beast Desgardius. He tributes Melkid and Revival Slime to special summon it to the field. I personally would have been okay sitting on that Revival Jam for a little bit longer. It's just such a good card for early Yu-Gi-Oh! You can just sit on that card for ages, but that's not a misplay because you got to go on the offensive at some point, and going on the offensive now was absolutely viable, so yeah, it was all fine. Marik orders Desgardius to attack by Duname's The Dark Witch. However, Mai activates her set Mirror Wall. This card cuts the attack of any attacking monster in half. With this play, Gardius is destroyed. However, due to its effect, when it is destroyed, it equips a Mask of Remnants equip spell from Marik's deck straight onto a monster the opponent controls. It moves the monster to Marik's side of the field. Now, interestingly, despite having the ability to attack directly here with the now under his control Dark Witch, he decides not to. What's the reason for that? Fun fact about Mirror Wall, its attack reduction is permanent. Marik is trying to avoid having a 900 attack monster on the field. It makes sense to me. Marik ends his turn by destroying Mirror Wall with his Remove Trap spell. At this point in the duel, Marik plunges it into a Shadow Game. The rules: every monster now summoned is imbued with the memories of someone you've met. If that monster is destroyed, every memory of that person is destroyed along with it. Steep stakes, I will have to admit, but something that wasn't erased from my memory was a small animation error here. You see, the animators actually show Mai draw twice, one before and one after the shadow game initiates. It's just an animation error. The number of cards in Mai's hand doesn't change. It's still correct. It's just I noticed that, so I just thought I'd mention it. It's Mai's turn, and she draws Amazon Archers. She sets it face down and then summons the unfriendly Amazon to the field. Note that due to this card's effect, Mai must tribute one monster during each of her standby phases if she wants to keep this monster on the field. So if you wondered why this monster didn't make an appearance a little bit earlier, that's why. Mai uses the unfriendly Amazon to attack and destroy the mind-controlled Dark Witch. It is destroyed, however, since it was Mai's monster, all her memories of Taya Gardner are erased from her mind. Keep in mind that she destroyed her monster with her monster. I just need to keep that in mind. She still lost their memories. This is important, not important, but it's something worth bringing up a little bit later. Just keep it in mind. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Rope of Life. Marik sets his card of Last Will face down, and then summons Makiura the Destructor to the field. He equips it with his black pendant to boost its attack by 500. Now, with enough attack to best the unfriendly Amazon, Marik attacks. Mai, however, activates her set trap, Amazon Archers, which decreases the attack of an attacking monster by 500. Makiura is destroyed, along with Marik's memories of strings. Also, since Black Pendant was sent to the grave, it inflicts 500 damage to Mai. And since Makiura was sent to the grave, its effect allows Marik to activate one trap card in his hand instantly. Marik activates the only card left in his hand, Rope of Life. This card brings back a monster sent to the graveyard with an extra 800 attack points. Now, with a big boost in attack, it attacks and destroys the unfriendly Amazon. Mai's memories of Joey are erased. Marik ends his turn. Mai losing her memories of Joey is a big deal. This is her, like, shining beacon, if you will. It's the warm sound she hears throughout the rest of the duel anyway. I just want to say a little fun fact. I don't normally look up the manga versions of these duels, but for this one I had to for some reasons. And I never realized that in the manga, obviously it's quite different in a lot of things, but they tried to keep it the same for the anime. You don't actually lose your memories in this duel, in the Marik-Mai duel. It's the same as the Joey Wheeler one, where if the monster is hurt in any way, destroyed or tortured and stuff, you feel that same experience kind of thing. So it's just always funny how the manga is so different yet similar to the anime. Yeah, it's just interesting. And it's completely besides the point. Getting back to the duel, it's back to Mai, and she draws Amazon Chainmaster. She summons it to the field and then ends her turn by setting her spell Gravearm face down. Remember, during Battle City, you can set normal spell cards face down, and then the next turn they become quick play spell cards. You can use them whenever you want. Now, some of you might be thinking, wait a minute, couldn't Mai have won this turn? Didn't she have the option to use her Amazoness Spellcaster to swap the attack of her Chainmaster with Makiura? She could then use Gravearm to blow up Makiura, and then she could attack directly for game. That would have been true. However, the issue is, had she altered the attack points of Makiura, Marik would have used his face down trap, which would have let him draw 5 new cards. Makiura, when it gets blown up, its effect would have allowed him to use the Nightmare Wheel in his hand. It would have pinned Chainmaster, and then Mai couldn't have saved her monster just yet at this point in the duel. So unfortunately, she wouldn't have won with this play, but it was an interesting what if she could have done. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Holding Arms. He summons it to the field. Now, this card is a funky card. It is one of the biggest problems I have with this duel because of its vagueness. What do I mean? Well, in the anime, its effect simply states, invincible for 3 turns. What does that mean? Well, I interpret that as meaning can't be destroyed by battle or card effects for 3 turns. However, looking closer at what Marik says, it also seems to imply that this monster can't be attacked for the next 3 turns.
こいつは3ターンの間、敵の攻撃は一切受け付けない無敵能力を備えている。
And if that's the case, that's okay, that's reasonable. I understand that, but wait, 3 turns? What do you mean? 3 of my turns or 3 turns in general? Because that makes a big difference. Is this monster immune for this turn that it's been summoned, Mai's turn, which would be the 2nd turn, and then Marik's 3 turns, so that's its invincibility? Or is it the turn it's summoned, the 2nd turn, it's Marik's turn, And then the third turn, it's Marik's turn. This effect is the most crucial for later, so we have to decide now what its effect is. And based on how the duel goes, I'm going to say that this monster's effect lasts for this turn that it's summoned, Mai's next turn, and Marik's next turn. Everything after that, this monster is okay to be attacked. So keep that in mind. And while we're here, we might as well cover this. This monster has a secret unwritten effect. Can you believe this? These effects are only offhandedly mentioned, but I'll try and interpret to the best of my ability what those effects are. Its secret effect is it can attack a monster, make that damage 0, and now for the next 3 turns, that monster attacked cannot attack. Now, at first, I thought this card also destroyed the chained up monster after 3 turns. However, Marik's wording in this scene implies more so that he'll destroy that monster before the 3 turns of invincibility are up. This is reinforced by how the modern, real-world version of this card doesn't actually destroy anything with its effect, it simply holds the monster in place. The only case you could make for destruction is how this monster was originally Vs Des in the manga. In the manga, however, it had the exact same effect of being invincible for 3 turns. However, the real-world version of Vs Des does have a destruction effect after 3 turns. So although it is a little bit vague, I am going to say that holding arms in the anime does not have a destruction effect. It simply prevents a monster that it attacks from attacking for 3 turns or remaining invincible on the field for those 3 turns. Now I know what you're thinking, it seems really pedantic to go through all this for this one card, but this monster is what will decide later if Mai could have won, or if Mai definitely couldn't have won. So I'll tell you what, we're going to put a pin in this for now, and we'll bring it back up when it becomes important to the duel. So, for now, Marik attacks Mai's Amazon Chain Master. No damage is dealt thanks to holding arms' effect. However, Chain Master is now incapable of moving. Mai, however, is prepared. She activates her set spell, Grave Arm, which lets her destroy 1 monster on the field. Marik reminds Mai, my monster's invincible, you can't destroy my monster. And that is where she reveals she is not targeting holding arms. Instead, she destroys her own monster, Amazon Chain Master. It is destroyed and sent to the grave, and as it is, its effect activates. Mai pays 1000 life points to declare 1 card in Marik's deck. If it is in there, she can add it to her hand. She declares the Winged Dragon of Ra. The play is successful and it is added to Mai's hand. Marik, with no further plays, ends his turn. Now this is just a little thing, but it's worth noting. Mai just destroyed one of her cards with a spell card, and she didn't lose any memories. She does try to explain this away, however. According to her, since it wasn't destroyed by one of Marik's cards, she doesn't lose any memories. But that's not what was established earlier. She destroyed her monster with her monster, and she lost the memories. So, I mean, it's only a little bit of shenanigans. Was it that big of a deal for her to just lose memories of just like one more person? Like, I don't know, Tristan? Would it have really impacted the duel that much? Don't let that all distract you from Marik's misplay this turn. Marik has an attack-boosted Makiura on the field. After Mai destroyed her own monster, why didn't Marik just attack for game with that? What's the deal here? Well, in defense of Marik, I think what happened was Marik attacked with the Holden Chains, equipped itself onto the Chain Master, moves into the main phase 2. Mai uses her spell card in the main phase 2 to destroy her monster, so we're out of the battle phase, so Marik couldn't attack there. That makes sense to me. However, that now raises the point, wait a minute, why didn't Marik just attack with Makiura instead? Why did he need to do the holding arms play when he could have just blasted the monster, gone, attacked directly with his holding arms and do a little bit of damage, and then it would have got rid of the monster as well? I guess in that situation, Mai would let Makiura destroy her Chain Master so that she'd take a bit of damage, sure, but she'd get to steal the Winged Dragon of Ra, and then Holding Chains would just attack directly and wouldn't actually equip to anything. So I guess that was an option, and then we can hold on to the spell card for a little bit later as well. It's an option. It's Mai's turn, and she draws Cyber Harpy Lady. She sets Amazon Spellcaster and Rescue Operation face down, and then summons Amazon Fighter. Unable to get over Makiura's attack and Holding Arms' invincibility effect, which is soon to end, Mai ends her turn. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Mysterious Card. Marik orders Makiura to attack Amazon Fighter. However, Mai activates her Amazon Spellcaster to swap the attack of the two battling monsters. Makiura is instead destroyed, and Marik loses his memories of Arcana. Unfortunately for Mai, since a monster's attack was altered, Marik is able to activate his set card, Card of Last Will. Thanks to its effect, when one of his monster's attack points are changed, he can now draw until he has 5 cards in his hand. With 0 cards in his hand, Marik draws 5 new cards. He gets Nightmare Wheel, Holding Legs, and 3 mysterious cards. Marik's Chain Link 2 now activates. Since Makiura was sent to the grave, its effect lets Marik activate a trap card in his hand. He activates Nightmare Wheel, equipping it to Amazon Fighter. Now, every turn, Mai will lose 500 life points. However, it doesn't really matter because Mai activates her face-down rescue operation, which returns 1 monster on her field back to her hand and allows her to replace it with another monster from her hand. She returns Amazon Fighter and special summons Cyber Harpy in its place. Marik ends his turn. As Marik ends his turn, Holding Arm's invincibility effect ends since it has been 3 turns, meaning it can be attacked. It's Mai's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. She draws and gets Graceful Charity. She activates it. Now she can draw 3 new cards, but then must discard 2. Mai draws Elegant Egotists, Gravity Bind, and a mysterious card. Mai sends the Amazon Fighter already in her hand with the mysterious card to the grave. Mai's hand now consists of the Winged Dragon of Ra, Gravity Bind, and Elegant Egotist. Really small animation error here. When Mai draws the 3 cards for Graceful Charity, she sends 2 of those cards to the graveyard and then adds that 1 card to her original hand. However, that's not what happened because we saw 2 seconds earlier into Mai's hand and her hand consisted of Amazon Fighter and the Winged Dragon of Ra. So the only way her hand could have had Gravity Bind and Elegant Egotist and the Winged Dragon of Ra in afterwards is if she sent Amazon Fighter and one of the new cards to the graveyard. It's just like a tiny error, doesn't a big deal at all, doesn't affect the match at all, but I just thought I'd just throw it out there. Anyway, Mai activates Elegant Egotist. This transforms Cyber Harpy Lady into the 3 Harpy Lady sisters. Each monster has 1800 attack. And it is here where Mai makes a grave mistake. She sacrifices all 3 of her Harpy Ladies in order to summon the Winged Dragon of Ra, whom, if my maths is correct, would have 5,400 attack and 3,900 defense. However, when Ra is summoned, it is sealed inside of a ball. Ra is not obeying Mai, and the reason why is because she has not recited the summoning chant on the card. Which, fun fact, I actually never knew about until watching this episode in the Japanese. The Winged Dragon of Ra doesn't have any card text on it when it's out and about, when it's in public, when you look at it like this. However, as soon as the monster has been summoned to the field, text appears underneath it. This is its summoning chant. I never knew that, that's so cool. So perhaps if Mai had seen this text, she might have not summoned Ra, I guess? Marik explains to Mai that Ra is in sphere mode, and because of this, it will not protect Mai from any attacks. Mai, who thought she absolutely had game here, is forced to end her turn by setting Gravity Bind face down. What's that? Could Mai have won this turn if things went slightly differently? Well, first off, I have absolutely no problem with Marik using foreign language cards in this duel. More power to him and everything like that. However, Mr. Referee, I'd just like to remind you of one important thing. And that is, according to official tournament rules, when using a card that is not in a local language version of the card or an accurate card translation must be available outside of the deck to show to an opponent or a tournament official. In fact, duelists are responsible for providing an accurate reference and may in fact incur a penalty if they provide an incomplete or inaccurate translation. Marik is technically cheating because he didn't have the translation of the Winged Dragon of Ra with him for Mai to read. However, that only really applies for the real world. Jokes aside, however, should Mai have even tried to summon Ra in the first place? I mean, I get it. You've just taken the big bad villain's boss monster and you've got 3 monsters on your side of the field. You're like, oh, I could just summon your monster and beat you with your own monster. It's tempting. I get it. I understand. But you have your 3 ace monsters on the field with more than enough attack points to win it all. Just attack with them. Be proud of what you have. However, we're not done because we need to establish, would she have won? had she attacked with those 3 monsters? And the answer is, unfortunately, yes, she would have. Holding Arms' invincibility effect had ended the prior turn. Evidence to support this is how Mai was planning to attack into it with the Winged Dragon of Ra to go for game this turn. So, with only a 500 attack point monster on Marik's side of the field and a mere 1050 life points, she in fact only needed to attack with one of the Harpy ladies. Meaning she didn't even need to dig for Elegant Egotist with Graceful Charity, she could have just attacked with the one she had and won the duel. Mai, you started BMing and tragically it cost you the duel. The broader message of this whole thing is don't make cards with secret unwritten effects that you don't explain properly. Anyway, we've got one final turn. It's Marik's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets another mysterious card. Marik summons Holding Legs to the field. When summoned, its effect returns all set spells and traps back to the hand. Gravity Bind is returned back to Mai's hand. Now, it is here that Marik states that when Holding Legs and Holding Arms are both on the field at the same time, Ujat's tablet appears. I don't know if this is a real monster. It might just be like a metaphorical monster or something. Like when these two appear, the sacrificial tablet appears kind of thing. Because the only reason I say that is because when that card is summoned, it doesn't have an attack and defense stat like all of the monsters summoned to the field do. It isn't physically on the duel disc after it's summoned. And it didn't come from Marik's hand because his hand is the same as after this monster is summoned. So I think that monster is just a dramatic effect kind of monster, just so it can just pin Mai against the wall. You know how it is. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't affect the duel in any way, shape, or form. So not a big deal. Anyway, Marik attacks Mai directly with Holding Arms and Holding Legs. Since Sphere Mode Ra isn't obeying Mai, it doesn't defend her. However, with only 800 life points left and still in the battle phase, Marik recites the ancient chant for the Winged Dragon of Ra. This causes Ra to be summoned to his side of the field. With 5,400 attack, Ra attacks Mai directly. Joey and Yugi physically tank the attack so that Mai isn't killed by the Shadow Game. However, there has to be a price, so Marik does like this whole thing where he slowly vanishes her mind every second that she's in a coma now. But ultimately, Marik wins the duel. The duel begins and Kaiba goes first. He draws and his opening hand consists of Vorse Raider, Kaiser Glider, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Soul Exchange, Polymerization, and Crush Card Virus. Before Kaiba does anything, Ishizu does some next level backseat gaming.
ブラッドボルスを攻撃表示で召喚。
ブラッドボルスを攻撃表示で召喚。
さらにリバースカードをセットして。
さらにリバースカードをセットして。Turn end.
Basically, by doing this, she confirms that the future she saw is right on track. It's Ishizu's turn, and she draws. Without even looking at her opening hand, she knows it consists of Keldo, Mudora, Zolga, Revival Magic, Fellow Traveler to the Grave, and Monster Reborn. Ishizu flexes her Millennium item by summoning her Keldo into defense with her eyes closed. She then activates her Fellow Traveler to the Grave spell. Due to its effect, both players reveal their hands. Then, each chooses 2 cards from the other player's hand to send to the grave. Then after that, both players draw 2 new cards. Ishizu, not needing to look at Kaiba's hand, asks him to send Polymerization and Kaiser Glider. He does this and then makes Ishizu send her Revival Magic and Monster Reborn spells to the grave. Both players then draw 2 new cards. Kaiba gets Virus Cannon and the Flute of Summoning Dragon, while Ishizu gets Sword of Dogra and Swords of Revealing Light. With this, Ishizu ends her turn. And this is where I have to jump in and say, Ishizu, if you would have done 1 or 2 different things in this turn, you could have won on your next turn. But how, you ask? Well, all you had to do was set Monster Reborn first and then summon Zolga into attack before using your spell. Now when you activate it, you instead send Kaiba's Blue Eyes White Dragon in his hand, as well as his Soul Exchange spell. You then use Monster Reborn to bring back Blue Eyes to your side of the field. Blue Eyes attacks Vorse Raider, dealing 1100 damage. Zolga attacks directly, dealing another 1700 damage. We move to Kaiba's turn. He draws Shrink. But oh no, He has no summonable monsters, no spells and traps to keep him in the duel. All he can do is set Shrink and end his turn. And with that, she can attack directly for game with Kaiba's own Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, to answer why Ishizu didn't do this, well, it's quite simple. It's not a part of her predestined path that leads her to victory. Keep in mind, she has seen the future. She knows the exact moves she needs to make in order to win. So straying from that path becomes unknown territory, so why would she do that? But it brings up a very interesting point. How exactly does the Millennium Necklace work? Does Ishizu have any say in how the future transpires? What I mean by this is, regardless of if she had the Millennium Necklace, is this how the duel would have played out? Or is it because she has the Millennium Necklace and can see the future, she's able to manipulate events in order to become the future that she so desires? I always assumed it was the latter. She manipulated things to become her desired outcome. However, from everything I've seen online, it's actually the former. It seems that the Millennium Necklace simply shows an already determined future, unable to be changed in any way, unless, specifically, a Millennium item intervenes. So with this in mind, that means that the Millennium Necklace grants no in-duel advantages. The best you get is you're never surprised by a play, because you know it's going to happen. She is not manipulating the duel into a future she wants, she is simply following her predestined path, and is unable to stray from it in any way. Honestly, stuff like this I love. It's really interesting to think about, but I'd love to know your guys' opinions in the comment section below. My opinion is not set in stone, but it seems to be the most likely case. But I'll let you all be the judge. But the point I'm trying to make of all this, Ishizu, you made a huge misplay. I know you're following your predestined path, but still, you could have won. Misplay. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws Shrink. Kaiba moves straight into his battle phase and uses Force Raider to destroy Keldo. Following this, Kaiba moves into his main phase 2 and sets his Shrink spell face down. Kaiba ends his turn. Now, believe it or not, Kaiba actually has a play that could lead to his victory. All he had to do was this simple thing. You see, Kaiba has Soul Exchange in his hand. He could have used it here to tribute Ishizu's monster, and his own to get out Blue Eyes White Dragon. He could then attack directly, dealing 3000 damage. Doing this would most likely have led to his victory, as he would not be playing into Ishizu's trap. So why didn't Kaiba do this? Well, I think there's 3 reasons why. 1, Kaiba has a plan. Kaiba needs his Force Raider on the field in order to activate his Crush Card Virus, in order to destroy Ishizu's entire deck. It's a common trait for Kaiba to do this, to make a plan going into a duel and to stick to that plan a bit too rigidly. So I think it's in character with Kaiba not wanting to stray from his Crush Card Virus trap card play. Plus, on paper, getting rid of nearly every single one of your opponent's strongest monsters, it's a good thing to do. The second reason is just speculation, but with Soul Exchange in hand, I imagine Kaiba wants the perfect victory. And let's be honest, what's a better perfect victory than beating Ishizu with a very god card that she gave him and that she wants to take back from him, and she's sort of hinting that's going to cost in the duel. And this also slides nicely into my final point. Kaiba has God card Tunnel Vision. You might not have noticed it yet, but the Blue Eyes White Dragon in Kaiba's hand, he hasn't even acknowledged it. Throughout this entire duel, he will never look at this card, he will never make a reference to this card, and he basically will just deny its existence until the last turn of this duel. And the reason that is God card Tunnel Vision. He wants his God card out. All he's focused on right now is getting that monster out. So that's why I don't think he did that play. However, good news, at the end of the duel, he's going to learn the importance of his ace monster. So it's fine. It's Ishizu's turn, and she draws Exchange of the Spirit. Ishizu summons her Medora to the field into attack, and then activates her equip spell, Sword of Dogra. She equips it to Medora. Due to its effect, Medora gains 500 attack. Now, with enough attack to destroy Force Raider, Ishizu attacks. However, Kaiba reveals his combo. He activates Shrink to halve Force Raider's attack to 950. Now, since there is a dark monster with less than 1000 attack on the field, Kaiba can play his Crush Card Virus, infecting his Force Raider. Medora's attack continues. Force Raider is destroyed. Kaiba takes the first damage of the duel. However, Due to Crush Card Virus's effect, every monster on Ishizu's field, in her hand, and in her deck with more than 1500 attack is sent to the graveyard. Ishizu sends her Medora on the field and Zolga in her hand to the grave, along with a huge chunk of her deck. Completely unsurprised by this, by the way, Ishizu moves into her main phase 2 and activates Swords of Revealing Light. Now, Kaiba can't attack for 3 whole turns. Ishizu sets her Exchange of Spirit face down and ends her turn. As she does this, she reveals that when Swords of Revealing Light's effect ends, Kaiba will draw the very card that will lead to his downfall. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws Dark Gremlin. He summons it to the field and sets his Virus Cannon spell face down and ends his turn. Are you ready for some speed round turns? Good. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Go. It's Ishizu's turn and she draws Muko. She ends her turn. It's Kaiba's turn. He draws Ring of Destruction. He ends his turn. It's Ishizu's turn. She draws a second copy of Muko. She ends her turn. It's Kaiba's turn. He draws Silent Doom. He ends his turn. It's Ishizu's turn and she draws Bomb Held by a Tribute. She ends her turn. As she does, Swords of Revealing Light's effect comes to an end. Stall cards. Am I right, guys? It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws the card Ishizu said would lead to his defeat, Obelisk the Tormentor. He moves into his battle phase and uses Dark Gremlin to attack Ishizu directly. He then moves into his main phase 2 and activates his set Virus Cannon spell. Due to its effect, it forces Ishizu to send 10 spell cards from her deck to the graveyard. Ishizu does this, and we see a pretty cool interior graveyard point of view shot. Which, I'll be honest, I don't think you'll ever see again in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. It was a nice shot, I liked it. You don't see that very often. Anyway, this is where Ishizu flips the script. She activates her set trap, Exchange of the Spirits. Now, by paying 1000 life points, each player swaps their deck with the graveyard. This act ruins Kaiba's day, as now he only has 6 cards to call his deck. These cards are Vorse Raider, Crush Card Virus, Shrink, Virus Cannon, Polymerization, and Kaiser Glider. Looking over on the other side of the field, Ishizu is actually loving life right now, as she gets to add back all the cards Kaiba forced her to send to the grave. Kaiba begrudgingly ends his turn. It's Ishizu's turn, and she draws Kelbeck. She summons it to the field and then sets one of her Muko traps face down. Ishizu ends her turn. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws... Yeah, Virus Cannon. Thank you, Ishizu. He attempts to activate it. However, Ishizu activates her Muko trap, which has the effect to either negate the activation of a card or force a card drawn to be sent to the grave. As such, Virus Cannon is negated. Ishizu, flexing again, reveals the next card Kaiba will draw will be Crush Card Virus. However, she says she won't even let him have a chance to play that one this time. And so, Kaiba ends his turn. Now, observant viewers might have noticed that Kaiba's monster is strong enough to defeat Ishizu's monster. Why didn't he attack? Well, Kaiba is running out of monsters. With not enough monsters in his hand and deck to summon Obelisk the Tormentor, which is, keep in mind, his only chance of winning the duel, he's going to have to rely on Soul Exchange. And to use it, he needs Ishizu to get out a couple more monsters. So, in order to achieve that, he's letting her build up her field. A desperate gamble, for sure. However, it's the only option he has. Until he remembers he's got a Blue Eyes White Dragon in his hand that only needs 2 tributes, but, okay. It's Ishizu's turn, and she draws Zolga. She summons it to the field. At this moment, right here, Kaiba finally accepts Ishizu can actually see the future, and he truly believes he is fated to lose. However, after a pep talk from Yugi saying how he actually sees a future where the two of them duel in Battle City, well, this stirs Kaiba on and gets him re-energized for the duel. Ishizu jumps in, reminding Kaiba, bro, this is still my turn, by the way. She uses Zolga to attack and destroy Dark Gremlin. She follows this up by then attacking directly with Kelbeck. She moves into her main phase 2 and sets a second copy of her Muko trap face down and ends her turn. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws Crush Card Virus. However, Ishizu, a lady of her word, promises to force that card out of his hand and activates Muko to send it straight to the grave. Unable to summon any monsters in his hand, Kaiba sets his Soul Exchange spell face down. Now, due to Battle City rules, a set normal spell can be activated like a quick play spell card on the following turn. The plan? Pray Ishizu overextends and summons a third monster. If she does that, Kaiba can chain Soul Exchange to tribute all 3 of her monsters to summon Obelisk the Tormentor. With this last gamble, he ends his turn. But I mean, it didn't have to be a gamble. Why the risk? Activate Silent Doom. You have a third monster on the field right now. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3. My goodness. I'll play Soul Exchange right now. Tribute all the monsters. Summon Obelisk the Tormentor. I don't care about back row. Gods aren't usually affected by most spells and traps. Attack directly for game. He'd have won. Like, there's no downside to it. I don't know why Kaiba didn't do it. And the ridiculous thing is, for some reason, Ishizu hasn't set Bomb with a tribute face down yet. She should have set that as soon as she had it, really. Because then if Kaiba ever did tribute the opponent's monsters, she would win. So the fact that she didn't do this meant that Kaiba could win this turn if he wanted to, but had she set it prior, then Kaiba would have lost even earlier. So obviously they're sticking to their predestined paths. Kaiba, I don't know why I didn't do this play, so misplay Kaiba. In fact, the same situation will happen later in the anime when Kaiba is dueling Yugi. 2 monsters on Yugi's field, 1 on his. Kaiba plays Soul Exchange, tries to summon out Obelisk, but obviously that gets interrupted. So it's confirmed that he could have won this way. No idea why he didn't do it. It's Ishizu's turn and the penultimate turn of the duel. She draws and gets a mysterious card that will never be seen or used. What do you think it was in the comments section below? Let me know. Ishizu finally sets her bomb held by a tribute trap face down. Due to its effect, a bomb is placed inside one of the monsters. She chooses it to be Zolga. Now, if Zolga is used for a tribute summon, the bomb will be transferred into that new monster, unbeknownst to the opponent. Then, the very moment that monster declares an attack, it will self-destruct, regardless of it being an Egyptian god or not. After this happens, damage is dealt to the wielder equal to its attack. This is the victory Ishizu saw in her future. All she needs to do is summon a monster to set it all in motion. Before she does that, however, I'm sure some of you are screaming at the screen, Ishizu, just don't overextend. You've got game on the field. Both your monsters can attack directly and just win the duel. The problem with this is Kaiba would probably, in this dire situation where he's about to lose, he'll just use Soul Exchange anyway as the quick play spell it is now, and just tribute the 2 monsters on the field instead to get out Blue Eyes White Dragon. Yes, it's the exact same outcome, but now Blue Eyes White Dragon is infected with the bomb, so if Blue Eyes attacks directly, Kaiba still loses. So it's kind of a win-win situation for Ishizu. However, it's actually a little bit more than that. If she would have done this play instead, she could have summoned her new monster into defense, ended her turn. Kaiba would now be in such a pickle. Even if he had a vision saying, listen, Kaiba, your Blue Eyes, it's infected with a bomb. If it attacks, you'll lose. What is he going to do? He can't get out Obelisk now. The only chance Kaiba had was if he draws Vorse Raider as early as possible, normal summon Vorse Raider, then use Silent Doom to get a third monster on the field, tribute all 3, summon out Obelisk. The problem with that is, it's going to take several turns. And in those several turns, Ishizu's going to have a couple monsters on the field into defense. So, not only does he have to get out Obelisk, he then needs to get over all of Ishizu's monsters. And most likely, before he ever gets a direct attack off, he'll have lost due to deck out. So yeah, Ishizu, your vision really did make you overextend. If you didn't overextend and just went for game as soon as you had it, you could have won. Getting back to reality, Ishizu does summon her Yugioh, Kaiba then activates his Soul Exchange, he tributes all 3 of her monsters, now the bomb is armed inside Obelisk, Ishizu ends her turn. It's Kaiba's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets Polymerization. Kaiba, believing he has won this game, attempts to move into his battle phase in order to declare his direct attack. However, before he does, Marik's Millennium Rod senses its previous owner from a past life in a dire situation. Due to its last shred of loyalty it had for Priest Seto, it bestows upon him a vision of the past in order to protect him in the duel. It shows Kaiba holding a mysterious girl in front of a tablet depicting the Blue Eyes White Dragon. When Kaiba returns, he feels an overwhelming sense that Blue Eyes is the key to victory. And this is where he finally acknowledges the Blue Eyes White Dragon in his hand. Kaiba changes fate. He activates Silent Doom, bringing back Gadget Soldier into defense. He then tributes both it and his Egyptian god in order to summon his Blue Eyes White Dragon. With the bomb defused and no longer on the field, Kaiba is free to attack without consequence. And so, Blue Eyes White Dragon attacks Ishizu directly. Her life points drop to 0, and Kaiba wins the duel. The duel begins and Bakura goes first. He draws, and his opening hand consists of Goblin Zombie, Gurnia, Exchange, Multiple Destruction, Destiny Board, and Fearful Earthbound. Bakura starts by setting his Fearful Earthbound trap face down, but not before revealing out loud it's a powerful trap. He summons his Goblin Zombie into attack and then ends his turn. Why did he summon his weak monster into attack? Well, because he's baiting Marik into attacking it so he can use his face down trap, which to me always seems like wacky logic in the anime. When do people never not attack in the anime? They always attack unless it's for like plot reasons or something like that. So I don't know. It seems like a waste of life points to me. Just summon it in defense. Marik would have attacked it anyway. You might as well. But there's a better question to be asking. Why did Bakura not set Destiny Board face down, or, you know, any of his other cards face down? Maybe he could have set everything and even used Exchange on this first turn to peek at Marik's hand and take anything spicy that he might have had. For example, he could have taken Remove Trap, which ironically is going to be the only back row removal Marik is going to have for the rest of this duel, which means had he set Destiny Board face down on this turn, used Exchange, he would never been able to remove it. And even if he didn't take it, use the Exchange play because he still wants to take Winged Dragon of Ra later in the duel, he could have just put it face down anyway. Destiny Board because he's going to put another trap face down. Marik's going to remove that trap, and it was unlikely he was going to get rid of the other one. So let's see how not setting Destiny Board on the first turn will impact the rest of the duel. It's Marik's turn, and he draws. His opening hand consists of Drallago, Melkid the Four-Faced Beasts, Black Pendant, the Mask of Remnants, Jam Defender, and Remove Trap. Marik starts by setting his Remove Trap face down, which thanks to Battle City rules, when you set a normal spell face down, it becomes a quick play spell for that battle phase and your next turn. So it is now technically a live face down quick play card. Yes, Battle City is wacky, but it doesn't matter. Marik summons his Drallago into attack. He enters his battle phase and attacks Goblin Zombie. In response, Bakura activates his set trap, Fearful Earthbound. Bro, why are you surprised? He literally told you it was a trap, and you've set Remove Trap face down. Due to this card's effect, every time Marik attacks for the rest of the duel, he will take 500 damage. However, before Marik can take any damage, he activates his set Remove Trap to destroy it. Because of this, the effect fizzles. Bakura's Goblin Zombie is destroyed. Bakura takes the first damage of the duel. Marik ends his turn. Fun fact, had Bakura set Destiny Board face down on his first turn, he could have activated it here. The end phase occurs of the opponent. He can now play Spirit Message I on his side of the field. So now he would have the letter F and the letter I. Don't worry, I'll keep you updated on these. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Spirit Message I. A completely useless card that we just talked about in our hypothetical. He wouldn't have drawn because his Destiny Board would have placed it on the field, so he would have drawn something completely different. Never mind. It doesn't matter. For now. Bakura sets his Exchange and Multiple Destruction face down. He summons his Gurnia into defense, and then ends his turn. It's back to Marik, and he draws Card of Sanctity. Without hesitation, he activates it straight away. Why do people keep doing this? Card of Sanctity lets you draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. Put some stuff on the field. Draw more cards. Why not? He could have summoned his Melkid to the field at the very least. He could have equipped it with his Black Pendant. That's 2 cards out of his hand. He could have set the other ones. Doesn't really matter, but regardless. Thanks to the effect of Card of Sanctity, both players draw until they have 6 cards in their hand. Marik draws 2 new cards. He gets 2 mysterious cards that aren't the Winged Dragon of Ra. Bakura draws 4 new cards. He gets Headless Knight, Earl of Demise, and 2 mysterious cards. All these mysterious cards, they don't matter, because Bakura, despite having 6 cards in his hand right now, decides he would rather have 5, and so activates his set trap, Multiple Destruction. This card forces both players, while they have 3 or more cards in their hand, to discard their entire hands, and then draw 5 new cards. However, Bakura takes 100 damage for each card he discards. Now, the reason Bakura is doing this is because obviously he wants Marik to get the Winged Dragon of Ra into his hand so he can activate Exchange. How will he know he gets the Winged Dragon of Ra into his hand? He can just tell somehow, which I think is kind of funny. It's not a great plan, but it's not a terrible plan, but it's fine. Marik discards his entire hand and draws 5 new cards. He gets Joyful Doom, Makiora the Destructor, Rope of Life, Card of Last Will, and Pot of Greed. Bakura discards his entire hand and draws 5 new cards. He gets the Portrait Secret, Dark Designator, Monster Reborn, Spirit Message N, and Premature Burial. Bakura takes 600 damage since he discarded 6 cards. Marik sets Joyful Doom face down and ends his turn. Why didn't he summon Makiora? Why didn't he activate Pot of Greed? Well, to be fair with the Pot of Greed thing, obviously he doesn't want to draw into the Winged Dragon of Ra now when Bakura's like gunning for it. So he's like, all right, I'll hold on to Pot of Greed. I'll keep this until later, until Bakura's not after my Winged Dragon of Ra anymore. Fun fact, he'll never activate Pot of Greed for the rest of this duel, even when Bakura gets the Winged Dragon of Ra. That's nutty to me, but sure. But I will say, not summoning Makiora, setting Rope of Life, or even Card of Last Will, you might as well have. Also, fun fact, had Bakura set that Destiny board on the first turn, he would now have, during this end phase, the 3rd letter, F, I, and N. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Puppet Master. With all the pieces in place, Bakura tributes his Gurnia to summon Puppet Master. Thanks to its effect, since it was tribute summoned, Bakura can pay 1000 life points. Now he can special summon 3 monsters in his grave, however, the monsters summoned can't attack for the rest of the turn. He summons Headless Knight, Goblin Zombie, and the Earl of Demise. Bakura then activates Dark Designator, which lets him declare a card's name, and if it's in the opponent's deck, they must add it to their hand. Bakura declares the Winged Dragon of Ra. Marik adds it to his hand. Bakura follows this all up by activating his set spell, Exchange. Now, both players reveal their hands to each other and take 1 card from each other. Bakura obviously takes the Winged Dragon of Ra from Marik. Marik takes Monster Reborn from Bakura's hand. Since Bakura has already summoned this turn and none of his monsters can attack, he ends his turn here. Part of me really wishes that Bakura had just set that Monster Reborn face down. He even acknowledges, oh my goodness, he's taken such a powerful card, but it's no worries, I've got his Ra. Just set it face down. There must be some secret rule in Yu-Gi-Oh! I know there's like a manga rule where you can only have like 6 cards on the field at a time or something like that. There must be something wacky that I don't know about, why people aren't just setting all their cards face down or anything like that, because it's a bit weird. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Vengeful Bog Spirit. He activates it. Now, monsters on the field can't attack the turn they are summoned. Yet again, despite having Makiora in his hand and Drillago still out on the field, Marik just ends his turn here. Now you might be thinking, actually that kind of makes sense. He wants Bakura to get out the Winged Dragon of Ra because he's got a face down trap that's going to help him out a little bit later. So he doesn't want to remove any of Bakura's tribute fodder, so he doesn't want to interrupt that. That's clever, right? No, because if Marik didn't activate Bog Spirit straight away, Let's just say he summoned Makioria, entered his battle phase, attacked Puppet Master, and then attacked Goblin Zombie. Well, they're both in attack position. One of them's got 0 attack, and the other one's got like next to no attack. And had both of these attacks gone through with Bakura only having 1900 life points, well, you'd have lost the duel. And if you're saying at home, how did you know those monsters were in attack position? Because we see the monsters later on the duel disc and they're in attack position, and Bakura later in the duel even switches his monster into defense, so we know for sure they're all in attack. Now obviously, Bakura could have avoided all this by just summoning all those monsters into defense, but we can't let carelessness go away unscathed here. He thought he would be fine summoning all his monsters into attack. He wasn't, so he should have been punished, and he wasn't punished, and it's really annoying. Huge misplay to Marik, huge misplay to Bakura. You're both dueling terribly. In fact, speaking of bad plays, had Bakura set that Destiny board face down on the first turn, right now he would now have letters F, I, N, and A on the field. Only one letter left. Will he be able to do it? Let's find out. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Dark Necrofear. Bakura tributes his Headless Knight, Goblin Zombie, and Earl of Demise to summon the Winged Dragon of Ra. However, Marik was ready for this. He activates his set trap, Joyful Doom. This card can only be activated when an opponent would tribute summon a monster. The attack of the tributed monsters are treated as 0. Then Marik gains life points equal to the attack the monsters lost. All of the monsters' attack drop to 0, and Marik gains a whopping 4,550 life points. Since Ra's attack and defense are determined by the combined attack or defense of its materials, Ra is summoned with no attack points. With 2 monsters on the field with 0 attack, Bakura switches Puppet Master and the Winged Dragon of Ra into defense and ends his turn. I'm sorry, excuse me, did Bakura just switch a monster he summoned to the field into defense on the same turn it was summoned? How the hell did he do that? And you might be asking, why didn't good Marik tell Bakura about Phoenix mode or life point transfer with Ra? Well, that's because good Marik doesn't know anything about that. Apparently, the Millennium Rod didn't reveal the full secrets of the hieratic text on the card or something like that. But then your second question might be, why didn't Bakura special summon his Dark Necrofear and then premature burial his Earl of Demise in the grave to the field? No idea. He can't attack with those monsters because of Vengeful Bog Spirit, but he would have monsters on the field ready for next turn to declare an attack. I'm sure that won't be a big issue. And alternatively, why didn't Bakura just not summon Ra? Ra couldn't have attacked anyway because of Vengeful Bog Spirit. Marik only had Joyful Doom face down and Drulago on the field in attack. Why not attack Drulago with Earl of Demise, then attack directly with the 2 other monsters? That's 400, 1450, then 1100 damage. That's 2,950 damage. That's a chunky bit of damage to do. It's lucky that Marik has Vengeful Bog Spirit on the field as well, because Bakura also could have normal summoned his Portrait Secret in his hand, and then he could have attacked directly with that final attack and gone for game. But because of Bog Spirit, he can't do that. Basically, this turn was a cascade of bad decisions that is definitely going to cost Bakura the duel. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Holding Legs. Marik immediately enters his battle phase and uses Drulago to attack and destroy Puppet Master. Marik ends his turn. I would just like to say it's bothering me how Marik's doing nothing with a fistful of cards. He's got Pot of Greed in his hand. I wish he'd use it. And here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. Fun facts. Had Bakura set Destiny board face down on the field, he would now have Destiny letter F, I, N, A, and L. Meaning, he would have won the duel right here. Zones were never overly occupied, so placing them was never an issue throughout the duel. Marik's only way of removing them was the remove trap he had on the first turn. Unfortunately, he used it on a different trap. The card Holding Legs, currently in his hand, when summoned, bounces all set spells and traps back to the hand, meaning it would have no effect on the Destiny board cards. What I'm trying to say is Bakura's decision to abandon his main win condition, or alternate win condition, whatever you want to call it, and focus on a different win condition when he could have had 2 win conditions going at the same time. Marik would be under pressure, they had to deal with both. He would have won. And I understand his logic. Oh, my opponent knows how to deal with this card, so I probably shouldn't rely on this strategy. But the opponent needs to also deal with the strategy anyway. He needs to get the card to... He needs to draw the out, basically. So this really annoyed me because I really like Destiny board. And I'd like to have seen it win once, you know? Would have been cool. It's Bakura's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Dark Ruler. Believing Ra is absolutely useless on the field, he tributes it to summon his Dark Ruler. No, Marik's got Monster Reborn, you know he has. I know you think it's useless, but just... You had a 3,000 plus defense point monster on your field in defense. That is unaffected by almost anything. It can only be affected by spells for 1 turn. Can't be affected by traps at all. Just leave it on the field. Why? Bakura banishes his Gurnia, Headless Knight, and Puppet Master in his grave to special summon Dark Necrophea. He then activates Premature Burial, paying 800 life points to revive his Earl of Demise in attack position. Since Vengeful Bog Spirit prevents monsters from attacking the turn they are summoned, Bakura ends his turn here, ready to attack on the next turn. However, I just want to remind everyone, he could have done this on the last turn, get himself set up ready for the next turn, because he knew Vengeful Bog Spirit was on the field and he wouldn't be able to attack this turn, but he could have got them all out on the last turn. So many mistakes. It's Marik's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets a mysterious card. What do you think this mysterious card is? Let me know in the comment section below. Marik activates Monster Reborn to bring back the Winged Dragon of Ra. Since it was special summoned, it has 0 attack. Also, due to God card immunity, spell cards only affect them for 1 turn, so Ra will go to the grave during the end phase. No problem for Marik, however, as he is planning to go for an OTK, which I just want to point out, Marik refers to this as an OTK. The episode's even called 1 turn kill. That's not what a 1 turn kill is. We are literally 10 turns into the duel and Bakura's got like 1100 life points left. Can we really call that an OTK? I don't think we can. Anyway, Marik reveals the secret effect of Ra, known as point-to-point transfer. This lets him turn all of his life points but 1 into attack points for Ra. Marik pays all of his life points to increase its attack and defense. Now, you might be thinking, but wait a minute, Vengeful Bog Spirit, he hasn't thought about this. Ra will be effective for that for 1 turn, meaning he can't attack, so he'll have to go to the graveyard. Well, that would work any other time. But apparently, the Winged Dragon of Ra's got another secret ability called Instant Attack, which I thought was only available during the Phoenix mode, but apparently you can do it in this mode as well. Thanks to this ability, it allows Ra to attack every monster the opponent controls once each. And so, the Winged Dragon of Ra attacks and destroys all of Bakura's attack position monsters. Bakura's life points drop down to 0, and Marik wins the duel. Congratulations, Yugi, Kaiba, Marik, and Joey, you're all through to the semi-finals. To decide who's going to duel who, we're going to have a battle royale. The first 2 duelists, whose life points drop down to 0 first, will be the ones to duel each other. While the 2 that remain, the winners, if you will, well, you 2 will duel each other. Let the battle royale begin. Before the duel begins, to decide the turn order, each player must reveal 1 monster from their deck. The order is determined by the attack points of the monster revealed, strongest to weakest. The catch, the monsters revealed are permanently removed from the game. Kaiba, determined to go first, reveals the strongest monster of the group. his Masked Beast, with 3,300 attack. Marik reveals the second strongest monster, Lechunga, with 1,700 attack. Yugi earns the third turn with his Feral Imp with 1,300 attack, and Joey is relegated to last, since he revealed his Swordsman of Landstar with 500 attack. And so, the duel begins and Kaiba goes first. He draws, and his opening hand consists of Force Raider, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Pot of Greed, Ring of Defense, Ring of Destruction, and Attack Guidance Armor. Kaiba starts by summoning his Force Raider to the field into attack. He then sets his Guidance Armor face down and ends his turn. Why didn't Kaiba set his Ring of Destruction, Ring of Defense, Spell and Trap combo? Well, it is the first turn. Kaiba's safe for a whole roundabout of turns, so there's no real reason to overextend so early. And keep in mind, with 2 extra opponents, there are a lot more chances of getting your back row removed by spell or trap card effects. So I think Kaiba not overextending here is an absolutely fine play. However, do you know what's not a fine play? Not activating Pot of Greed. I'm going to tell you right now, spoilers, he will never activate Pot of Greed for the rest of this duel. And I just can't fathom it. Why would you not activate Pot of Greed? There's like no reason why you would ever not activate Pot of Greed, especially in ye old days where like Ash Blossom and all those things don't exist yet. I mean, he just needed to do it. He could have drew 2 new cards, but he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it for the rest of this duel. I'm just gonna give Kaiba a misplay. The only reason I think he doesn't use Pot of Greed is because he's in control this entire duel. He's never in a really bad spot, so I don't think he needs to push himself. Also, the fact that there's no real losers in this duel, I think means that people can play a bit more wishy-washy. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just so frazzled by the Pot of Greed. Yeah. It's Marik's turn, and he draws. His opening hand consists of Nudoria, Lord Poison, Dark Geroid, Legendary Fiend, Hellpoma, and Spell of Pain. Marik summons his Nudoria to the field into defense. He then ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws. His opening hand consists of Big Shield Gardener, Beast of Gilfer, Dark Magician, the Regulation of Tribe, Spellbook of Secrets, and 7 Tools of the Bandit. Yugi summons his Big Shield Gardener into defense. He then sets the Regulation of Tribe and 7 Tools of the Bandit face down and ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and he draws. His opening hand consists of Skull Dice, the Legendary Fisherman, Foolish Burial, Jinzo, Insect Queen, and Grave Robber. Joey, having absolutely bricked this turn and unable to summon any monsters since all the monsters in his hand are too high level, is forced to simply end his turn by setting his Grave Robber face down. Now, Joey's the one who admits that this is a bad hand. However, in honesty, it's not that bad. In fact, he's made 2 misplays this turn. The first is that, oddly, Joey didn't set his Skull Dice face down, which I'm going to class as a misplay since, with an open field, if all 3 duelists just turn, face Joey, and attack him one by one, he's just going to get instantly wiped out the game. So the fact he didn't plan for a worst case scenario, I know that won't happen because luckily Yugi's going to defend him on the next turn. He didn't know that was going to happen, so he should have planned just a little bit better. So I'm going to give him a misplay for that. The second misplay is that he didn't set his Foolish Burial face down. Why is this a misplay? Well, in the anime, Foolish Burial has the effect that it sends a card in your deck to your opponent's graveyard. Joey has a combo here. He can send any card from his deck that he wants to whichever graveyard, activate his Grave Robber to get it straight back to his hand. And as evidenced by his duel with Odion, he can even special summon monsters back to the field. In that duel, he sent Jinzo and then used Grave Robber to special summon it straight to his field. Unfortunately for Joey, all of his big monsters are currently in his hand, and he doesn't have Red Eyes Black Dragon in his deck. I don't think he has any more huge monsters that I know about in his deck that he can summon. But he's got some decent ones with 1800 attack, so that could have been an option. And to address the elephant in the room, yes, I know, if he would have done this Foolish Burial Grave Robber combo, then he can't do his iconic play and get the outcome that he wants at the end of this duel. But you have to have some real level of foresight to know that the duel's going to turn out that way. So for me personally, without the knowledge of foresight, I think setting all these cards face down would have been in his best interests. But I digress. Joey ends his turn. It's back to Kaiba, and he draws Shrink. Since every duelist has now had a turn, the battle phases become live. Kaiba, wanting to duel Yugi, plans to wipe out Marik and Joey to achieve this result. And with Joey wide open, Kaiba moves into his battle phase and readies his attack with Vs Raider. At that very moment, Yugi makes up his mind. He decides to honor his promise to Joey, and so protects him by activating his set trap, the Regulation of Tribe. Due to this card's effect, one declared monster type is unable to declare an attack while it remains face up on the field. Yugi declares Beast Warrior, and so Kaiba is unable to attack with Vs Raider. Here, Kaiba calls out Joey, saying that the only reason that Yugi protected him was because he knows deep down the semi-finals will be the only opportunity for Joey to duel him. Ultimately, Kaiba is accusing Yugi of rigging the game this way because he doesn't believe Joey can make it to the finals. Yugi and Joey both see through Kaiba's comments and know that this isn't true. Simply put, Kaiba is just trying to manipulate Yugi to fight him instead. Despite all this, however, this speech does help Joey make up his mind and decides that he truly wants to fight Marik in the next round. Kaiba, despite having all these amazing cards in his hand, simply ends his turn here. I'm just going to give Kaiba another misplay here for not using Pot of Greed or saying anything else. Just saying. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Mirror Force. Since Marik wants to duel Yugi, he plans to wipe out Kaiba and Joey. As such, Marik starts by setting his Mirror Force face down, and then summons his Lord Poison. He switches his Newdoria into attack, and then orders it to attack Kaiba's Vs Raider. Since Vs Raider is stronger, it destroys Newdoria. Upon its destruction, Newdoria's effect activates, allowing it to destroy one monster on the field. Marik destroys Kaiba's Vs Raider with this effect. However, he's not done. Before the battle damage is about to be dealt to Marik, he activates his quick play Spell of Pain. This card redirects any battle or effect damage he is about to take to somebody else. Marik redirects the 700 damage he was about to take to Joey instead. Joey takes the first damage of the duel. With Joey and Kaiba wide open for a direct attack, who will Marik choose to attack with his Lord Poison? Well, for some absolutely insane reason, Marik doesn't declare an attack. Instead, he just ends his turn. I have no earthly idea why he didn't attack one of these players. Both of them have one set card face down. Maybe he was worried about that. Had he attacked Joey, he would have done some direct damage. Had he attacked Kaiba, Kaiba would have either chose to take the damage or to use his trap card to redirect the attack to Yugi's monster, which would have dealt damage to Marik and would have made Yugi's monster switch into attack. Anyway, it's happened now, and that's 3 turns in a row of misplays. The only person not throwing this battle royale so far seems to be Yugi. Speaking of, it's Yugi's turn, and he draws a mysterious card. This card will never be seen, will never be played, and ultimately doesn't really matter on the duel, so never mind. Yugi's standby phase occurs, and Regulation of Tribe demands a tribute for its maintenance cost. Yugi, however, refuses to pay it, and so it is sent to the grave. Yugi starts his main phase by tributing his Big Shield Gardener to summon his Beast of Gilfer. He moves into his battle phase and attempts to attack Kaiba directly. However, Kaiba activates his face-down trap, Attack Guidance Armor. This redirects Yugi's attack to another monster on the field. Since the only other monster is Marik's Lord Poison, the attack moves towards him instead. Marik, having absolutely none of this, activates his face-down trap, Mirror Force. When attacked, it destroys all attack position monsters Yugi controls. With this play, Yugi's field would be wiped out. However, double twist. Yugi activates his set counter trap, 7 Tools of the Bandit, which, by paying 1000 life points, lets him negate the activation and destroy Marik's Mirror Force. And so, with Mirror Force negated, the attack continues. Lord Poison is destroyed, and Marik takes damage. Yugi ends his turn. It's Joey's turn, and he draws Gearfried the Iron Knight. He summons it to the field. Joey contemplates for a moment who to attack. Marik and Kaiba both have completely empty fields. Joey doubles down on his decision, that he wants to face Marik in the finals in order to save Mai. This means that Yugi and Kaiba are now his enemies. With this resolve, he attacks Kaiba directly. Joey ends his turn by setting Skull Dice face down. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws Blade Knight. At this point, Kaiba contemplates changing tactics, thinking to try and defeat Yugi instead and then throw the duel for himself, so that both duelists will lose and face each other that way. However, of course, Kaiba's pride will not let him get this outcome, as Kaiba refuses to let himself lose on purpose. With Kaiba also doubling down, he sets his Ring of Destruction, Ring of Defense, and Shrink face down, and then summons Blade Knight into attack. He moves into his battle phase and uses Blade Knight to attack Marik directly. Kaiba, yet again, ends his turn without activating that Pot of Greed in his hand. I'm just gonna give him another misplay there. Kaiba ends his turn. It's Marik's turn, and he draws a mysterious card. People are going to draw a lot of mysterious cards moving forward, so just keep that in mind. Marik summons his Dark Gyroid into attack. Due to its effect, when summoned, it reduces the attack of one monster on the field by 800. Marik enters his battle phase and attacks Gearfried. However, Joey activates his set Skull Dice. Due to this card's effect, he can roll a die and then whatever the result is how much the attack of that opponent's monster is divided by. Joey rolls the dice and gets a 2, so Dark Gyroid's attack is cut in half. Joey thinks he's won this exchange. However, Kaiba, the absolute troll, decides to ruin Joey's day. Kaiba activates his set Shrink to halve Joey's Gearfried's attack. Now, too weak to defend himself from Dark Gyroid, it is destroyed. Joey takes 100 damage. As Marik ends his turn, the detrimental effect of Skull Dice expires, returning Dark Gyroid back to normal. I just want to reiterate the fact that it's in Kaiba's best interest for Joey and Marik to attack each other, because that's how he gets the result that he wants. So the fact that he got involved here can only be described as an absolute troll move, and I like it. It's fine. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws another mysterious card. Yugi at first plans to attack Marik and destroy his only monster. However, before Yugi can attack, Joey calls for a timeout. Joey tells Yugi that he wants him to go all out and have faith that the both of them will meet in the finals. Yugi, ultimately trusting Joey, decides to attack him directly, since, yeah, he is wide open. With no apparent further plays, Yugi ends his turn here. Little fun fact, by the way, the combo that Joey's about to do on his next turn, he actually could have done it right here. What do I mean? Well, when Joey is attacked directly by Yugi, he activates his Grave Robber, steals Spell of Pain from Marik's graveyard, and then when he takes the 2200 damage, just throw that straight onto Marik. Doing it this turn would actually guarantee the result that Joey wants. Whereas by Joey doing it on his next turn, it actually turns into a gamble. Yes, it's gonna work out, but Joey didn't know that, so I'm gonna give him a misplay. Obviously, we all know why this happens. It's the suspense and the dramaticness of the anime, but doesn't matter. We're being technical here. What's that? What was the combo? Well, it's Joey's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Axe Raider. He summons it straight to the field. Joey, suspecting Kaiba of having traps up his sleeve, decides to gamble on this next play. He enters his battle phase and orders Axe Raider to attack Blade Knight. As predicted, Kaiba activates his face-down Ring of Destruction and Ring of Defense combo. With this, it will destroy Joey's Axe Raider and deal the destroyed monster's attack as damage to both players. However, with Kaiba activating Ring of Defense, this will mean the damage will only be inflicted to Joey. This move would wipe out Joey. However, he activates his set Grave Robber's Trap. Due to its effect, he can steal one card in an opponent's graveyard and activate or summon it immediately, as if it was his own. Joey decides to steal Marik's Spell of Pain. Due to its effect, the damage Kaiba would have inflicted to Joey is instead redirected to Marik. In the blink of an eye, Marik's life points drop to 0 in a surprise twist to everyone. Marik is immediately ejected from the duel. He is also placed in the first bracket spot in the finals. Before Joey ends his turn, he reveals that, well, he has no monsters, no spells, and no traps on his field to defend himself. This is all just like he planned. With an open field, he can be attacked and fight Marik in the first round of the finals. It's Kaiba's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets, it doesn't really matter, because Kaiba immediately enters his battle phase and uses Blade Knight to attack and defeat Joey. With Joey's life points having dropped to 0, he is removed from the duel and placed alongside Marik in the first semi-final bracket.
Yo, お待ちどうさん。お前も闇行き決定だ。
With no reason to continue any further, the duel ends here, as the winners, Kaiba and Yugi, are placed in the second semi-final bracket together. With the placements decided, it's finally time for the Battle City semi-finals to begin. The duel begins and Marik goes first. His opening hand consists of Gilgarth, Card of Last Will, Tribute Burial, Plasma Eel, Hell Poema, and Dark Wall of Wind. He summons Gilgarth in attack and sets his Dark Wall of Wind quick play spell face down and ends his turn. It's Joey's turn and we see his opening hand. It consists of Alligator Sword, Rocket Warrior, Baby Dragon, Graceful Dice, Foolish Burial, and Scapegoat. Joey thinks to himself that nothing in his hand can get over Gilgarth, so he sets his Scapegoat face down and summons Alligator Sword into defense. First move off the bat, this could be considered a misplay already by Joey, as had he summoned his Rocket Warrior instead, he could have attacked and reduced the attack of Gilgarth to 1300, making it weak enough that on his next turn he would be able to destroy it. Perhaps he was saving this monster for a more threatening one later in the duel. However, I'm going to let you in on a little secret about this duel. Joey is going to play extremely cautious in this duel. So much so, it's actually going to hinder his dueling ability quite a lot. We'll talk about it more as it happens, but keep in mind that Joey is going to be a bit frightened to duel in this duel. But let's be fair to Joey's credit, this is the big bad Yami Marik, so you almost can't fault him for being afraid of every set card he plays. Regardless, Joey ends his turn here. Oh, and by the way, in case you were thinking it, Graceful Dice in the anime can only be used on monsters with less than 500 attack. So Graceful Dice couldn't be used here to get over Gilgarth, just in case you were wondering. It's back to Marik, and it's here that the duel enters the Shadow Realm. Marik draws Drulago, which he immediately summons and uses to destroy Alligator Sword. Here, Joey receives the first shadow damage of the duel, which we're going to jot down as being drilled to death. Not a very nice way to go. Following this, Marik attempts to attack directly. However, Joey plays Scapegoat, creating 4 tokens as a line of defense. Marik destroys 1, however, since he wasn't technically a monster, Joey receives no punishment. Marik ends his turn. It's Joey's turn and he draws Panther Warrior. He summons it to the field and enters his battle phase. However, in order to attack with Panther Warrior, he first has to sacrifice one of his tokens. He does this and attacks Gilgarth. It is destroyed and he inflicts both life point and shadow damage to Marik. However, since Marik is a little bit of a masochist, we're not going to talk about Marik taking shadow damage anymore, because 1, it doesn't really affect him that much. It does a little, but nowhere near as much as Joey, and 2, I think he kind of likes it. It's Marik's turn and he draws Hidden Soldiers. He plays Tribute Burial to remove from play Alligator Sword from Joey's grave and Gilgarth from his own to normal summon Hell Poema without a sacrifice. Marik ends by setting Hidden Soldiers. But wait a minute, this is a massive red flag in the duel. As Yugi on the sidelines correctly states,
"Why didn't Marik attack? He must be up to something."
Why, pray tell, didn't Marik destroy Joey's 2 Scapegoat tokens with his Hell Poema and Drulago? Or why didn't he do the more superior play of crashing his Hell Poema into Panther Warrior and then destroying a token? Well, it appears that the only reason that Marik did this, and is going to keep doing things like this for the rest of the duel, is because he has such little faith in Joey's dueling ability that he plans to win not through dueling. He wants to beat Joey in the most soul-crushing and traumatic way possible, by constantly wearing him down throughout the duel, by destroying as many of his monsters as possible in the worst ways he can possibly manage to do. To Marik, Joey is such a non-character. To him, he is not a threat in any sense of the word. There is no way, in Marik's mind, Joey could ever beat him in a duel. And through this way, he wants to end the duel with Joey simply losing the duel from death. However, ultimately, this is where Marik miscalculated. It's Joey's turn and he draws Jinzo. Joey is suspicious of Marik's Hell Poema. and thinks if he summons Jinzo to attack it, he'll lose one of his best cards. So instead he summons Rocket Warrior. However, this was completely the wrong move and a classic case of overthinking a situation, as when Rocket Warrior is summoned, Marik plays his trap, Hidden Soldiers, to special summon Plasma Eel from his hand. Plasma Eel equips itself onto Panther Warrior, reducing its attack by 500, and in the process also electrocutes Joey simultaneously. Joey then uses Rocket Warrior to attack Helpoema, which makes all battle damage 0, but reduces the monster's attack by 500. Joey then tributes a sheep token to allow Panther Warrior to attack the weakened Helpoema. The attack is successful. However, Helpoema's effect kicks in. Now, for as long as it remains in the graveyard, Joey must discard a random card at the end of every one of his battle phases. And since Joey's battle phase ends, Jinzo is sent to the grave. Two quick things to mention here. One, I'm sure you all realised it, but had Joey just summoned Jinzo here, then all of these problems that he's just run into would not be an issue. In fact, Marik would have been in a ton of trouble. He wouldn't have been able to do anything, especially since Jinzo would have made Joey immune to all of Marik's current and future traps for as long as Jinzo was on the field, which, since Marik plays a very trap heavy deck, it was a missed opportunity. The second thing I want to mention, there's a little bit of a mistake in the dub. In the dub, it says that Helpoema goes into Joey's graveyard, and so that's how he's like affecting it.
And I doubt you'll like it.
You're caught!
It's in your graveyard now!
That's not true, he goes into Marik's graveyard. The only reason this is important because Joey's going to use a card later called Question, which revolves around what card is at the bottom of Joey's deck. In this case, it probably would have been Helpoema. It's important that that's not in the bottom of the graveyard. Big mistake. It's Marik's turn and he draws Coffin Seller, which he sets along with Card of Last Will. Why didn't he set Card of Last Will last turn so he could have drawn a bunch of cards? Well, now he has no cards in hand, so this is technically the most optimal way of playing this card. So I think it's fine Marik played it this way, absolutely fine. Marik again ends his turn without attacking. Remember, Marik's still trying to waste Joey, not beat him in a duel. It's Joey's turn and he draws Insect Queen. Just doesn't fit with your deck, Joey, please get it out of there. Joey decides yet again it's too risky to summon a powerful monster, since Marik has just so much back row, and instead summons Baby Dragon to bolster his defense. However, yet again, Joey had overthought the situation, as summoning the 2200 attack point Insect Queen would have been the best play, since Marik had no traps that could protect himself. However, again, Joey doesn't know this, and bluffs do work in Yugioh, even in real life. I fell for bluffs, so yeah, Joey could fall for bluffs. However, what is unfortunate is a little bit later during the same turn, Joey is going to decide, let's go all out actually, screw the bluffs. Yes, Joey decides he's done being passive, and instead wants to go on the offensive. Yugi in the crowd agrees.
No, he should attack. In order for Joey to win, he must force Marik to reveal his traps right away.
Rocket Warrior attacks Drillago to reduce his attack, but Marik activates his trap, Card of Last Will, which lets him draw 5 cards when one of his monster's attack points are altered. The cards Marik draws are Legendary Fiend, Premature Burial, Relieve Monster, Nightmare Mirror, and the Winged Dragon of Ra. Joey tributes his last sheep token so Panther Warrior can attack and destroy Drillago. The attack is successful, but Marik activates his Coffin Seller trap, making it so every time a monster card goes to Joey's grave, he takes 300 damage. Joey's battle phase ends and Helpoema forces Joey to discard Insect Queen. Then, at the end phase, Plasma Eel reduces Panther Warrior's attack further by 500, and also electrocutes Joey again. It's Marik's turn and he draws Nightmare Wheel. He sets it face down, then activates Premature Burial at the cost of 800 life points. He does this to special summon Drillago back from the grave. He then immediately tributes it for the summon of the Legendary Fiend, which gains 700 attack during each of Marik's standby phases. Yet again, Marik doesn't attack, despite Baby Dragon and Panther Warrior being weak enough to be destroyed. The only logical reason I can think that Marik does this is because he wants Joey to be electrocuted more, maybe, since Plasma Eels attacked Panther Warrior. That's a best guess, but he's just being cocky, basically. It's Joey's turn and he draws Little Wingard. As Joey attempts to summon it, Marik plays Nightmare Wheel, targeting Rocket Warrior, locking it in place and making it unable to attack or use its effects, making it so that Joey also takes 500 damage during each of Marik's standby phases, and of course, on top of that, Joey will feel the same pain the monster does. Joey again attempts to summon his Little Wingard in defense. He then switches Panther Warrior to defense, and with no other options, he ends his turn. However, since Joey didn't enter his battle phase, he isn't forced to discard a card, which would have either been his Graceful Dice or Foolish Burial. However, Plasma Eel's effect still kicks in, reducing Panther Warrior's attack more and electrocuting Joey for the 3rd time. It's Marik's turn and he draws Malevolent Catastrophe. Since it's his standby phase, Nightmare Wheel inflicts 500 damage and Joey is inflicted with a Torture Wheel's pain. On top of this, Legendary Fiend gains 700 attack from its effect. And it is here that Marik decides, you know what? I'm going to start attacking now. And so, he attacks and destroys Little Wingard. And since one of Joey's monsters was sent to the grave, Coffin Cellar deals 300 damage. And he receives yet again more shadow damage, this time from being sliced in half. Marik ends by setting Malevolent Catastrophe face down. It's Joey's turn and he draws Question. And a really awesome exchange of dialogue happens here between Marik and Joey.
The card I'm holding in my hand right now is gonna put an end to your entire dueling strategy.
You lie!
Joey immediately uses Question. This card makes it so that Marik has to guess what card is at the bottom of Joey's grave. If he guesses right, the monster is banished. If he guesses wrong, the monster is summoned instead. Since this card was sent via Helpoema, Marik actually has no way of knowing, and doesn't even attempt to guess. The card was of course Jinzo, which is summoned straight to the field. Now, due to the anime effect of Jinzo, all trap cards on the field are destroyed. These include Nightmare Wheel, Coffin Cellar, and Malevolent Catastrophe. Joey goes on the offensive, switching all of his monsters to attack. Jinzo attacks first, destroying Legendary Fiend. However, as Joey attempts to attack with his other 2 monsters for seemingly game, Marik plays Dark Wall of Wind, which was a card that he had set during his first turn. This made him unable to receive direct damage. The battle phase ends and Joey is forced to discard Foolish Burial, which, if you didn't know, in the anime, Foolish Burial sends a card from your deck to your opponent's graveyard. If you know any way that that's a really good card, let me know in the comment section below because I'd love to know, but anime Foolish Burial is really weird. The end phase occurs and Plasma Eel takes the last of Panther Warrior's attack and electrocutes Joey for the 4th time. It's Marik's turn and he draws Lava Golem. He sacrifices Joey's Jinzo and Baby Dragon to summon it to Joey's side of the field. Why didn't he sacrifice Joey's Rocket Warrior instead of the Baby Dragon? I have no idea. It would have been a much better play, but sure, why not? Now, every time Joey ends his turn, he will take 700 damage as long as this monster remains on the field. Marik ends by setting Relieve Monster face down. It's back to Joey and he draws Gamble. Joey attempts to attack directly, despite Marik's mind games and bluff talk. However, as he does, Marik plays Relieve Monster to return Plasma Eel back to his hand and then immediately resummon it in defense to tank the attack. However, since Plasma Eel can't be destroyed by battle, it remains on the field. The battle phase ends and Helpoema snatches Gamble from Joey. And I think here is a great time to bring up the big flaw of Helpoema that Joey never once capitalized on. You see, Joey has had spells and traps the majority of the time in his hand. He's had a couple monsters in there, but had he just put these cards in his back row, he wouldn't have to discard anything. Maybe he wants, if he gets a monster, there's a chance it could take one of the other cards instead. I don't know. It's a bit of a bad play by Joey there. There were some options he could have done. Some cards in his hand he could have used. Never mind. Anyway, it's the end phase, so Lava Golem deals 700 damage to Joey, leaving him with 2,200 life points left. It's back to Marik and he draws Machine Duplication, which he uses on his Plasma Eel. Its anime effect allows it to summon 2 more from his deck. He then uses them both to latch onto Lava Golem and Rocket Warrior. Marik ends by setting Nightmare Mirror face down. It's Joey's turn and he draws Guilford the Lightning. Beautifully, the graceful dice that he had in his hand throughout the entire duel, and that has dodged every Helpoema discard, finally has a target. He uses it on Marik's Plasma Eel, multiplying its attack by 6, and since now it's too powerful for Machine Duplication, Machine Dupe and the 2 Plasma Eels are destroyed. Joey then tributes Panther Warrior, Rocket Warrior and Lava Golem to summon Guilford the Lightning, who on summon destroys all of Marik's monsters. Try not to think about this turn too much because Joey could have just summoned Guilford the Lightning by sacrificing the 3 monsters and he would have nuked Marik's field, doing the exact same thing, except he would have been able to keep Graceful Dice in hand. But sure, whatever. You can do it this way if you want, I guess. Anyway, Joey tries to attack for game, but Marik uses Nightmare Mirror to negate the attack and inflict 1000 damage to Joey, and also allow him to discard the Winged Dragon of Ra from his hand to the grave. Hellpoema's effect attempts to activate during the end phase, but Joey has nothing to discard. Joey ends his turn here. It's Marik's turn and the penultimate turn of the duel. This is the turn that Marik plans to murder Joey. Marik draws Monster Reborn. He uses it straight away to revive the Winged Dragon of Ra, which has 0 attack and 0 defense. However, Marik plays one of Ra's special abilities. Marik pays 1000 life points to transform Ra into its Phoenix mode, granting it for 1 turn complete immunity to destruction and the power to disintegrate every card the opponent controls on the field. Marik attacks and disintegrates Gilfer with what can only be described as a sacred flame of unimaginable heat. I mean, from the look on Joey's face, being disintegrated by sacred fire does not look like a fun experience. As the dust is settling and Marik feels like this duel is in the bag, Joey is revealed to still be standing. Marik absolutely bricks himself here, and since an Egyptian god that is brought back from the grave has to go to the grave during the end phase, Marik is left completely wide open. Now it's the final turn and Joey's turn. With all his strength he draws a card, which to his luck is Gearfried the Iron Knight, a card with enough attack to win him the duel. He summons the monster and attempts to declare an attack, but due to being electrocuted 4 times, drilled to death, cut in half, execution wheeled, disintegrated by a god's sacred fire, he collapses before being able to declare an attack, resulting in his disqualification.
It's not fair!
The duel begins and Yugi goes first. He draws and his opening hand consists of Queen's Knight, Big Shield Gardener, Exchange, Collected Power, Magical Hats, and Light Force Sword. Yugi starts by summoning his Queen's Knight into defense. He sets his Light Force Sword face down and ends his turn. Why didn't he summon, or even better, set his 2600 defense Big Shield Gardener face down? I have no idea. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws. His opening hand consists of Obelisk the Tormentor, X-Head Cannon, Spell Sanctuary, Lullaby of Obedience, Power Balance, and Enemy Controller. Kaiba starts by summoning his X-Head Cannon. He then activates his Spell Sanctuary. Due to its effect, both players add 1 spell from their deck straight to their hands. Yugi adds Change of Heart, whereas Kaiba adds Soul Exchange. However, that's not all. Now, for as long as this card remains face up on the field, both players can activate spell cards during the opponent's turn, as long as they were set first. This is a weird effect to tack on, because we've already established that during Battle City, if you set a spell card, even if it's a normal spell, you can activate it during your opponent's turn. So I'm not quite sure why Kaiba's playing a card that does this here. It doesn't hurt the duel, so let's move on. Kaiba chooses not to attack. Instead, he sets his enemy controller face down and ends his turn. Why didn't Kaiba destroy Queen's Knight? Well, that's because he's setting up an OTK. He wants Yugi to fill his field so that he can use Soul Exchange that he just added to wipe Yugi's board and then attack the game with Obelisk. In all honesty, this is a fine strategy, but at the end of the day, he should have just attacked. By destroying this 1 card, Kaiba would have created a ripple effect for the rest of this duel. And while I can't guarantee he would have 100% won by doing this, it would have helped a lot more. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Alpha the Magnet Warrior. Yugi, unable to get over X-Head Cannon, summons Alpha into defense. He sets his Change of Heart face down and ends his turn. An alternate play that Yugi could have done here was, he could have summoned his Alpha into attack, switch Queen's Knight into attack, activate Change of Heart, take control of X-Head Cannon, and then attempt to attack with all 3 for game. It's a good idea in theory, but had he done this, then Kaiba would have just used his enemy controller to take back his X-Head Cannon, and now Yugi would have had no defenses next turn. So overall, Yugi, well done on not overcommitting. Good play. It's back to Kaiba and he draws Interdimensional Matter Transporter. With all the pieces in place, Kaiba begins his OTK. He starts by activating Soul Exchange. Now he can use Yugi's monsters currently on the field for his tributes. Realizing Kaiba is about to go for Obelisk, Yugi plays Change of Heart to take control of Kaiba's X-Head Cannon. However, Kaiba plays his enemy controller. By paying 1000 life points, he takes back X-Head. Realizing if he doesn't stop the summon, he will lose the duel, Yugi activates his final face down Light Force Sword. With its effect, he can banish one random card in Kaiba's hand face down for 4 turns. With a 25% chance of hitting Obelisk, the play is successful. Obelisk is banished, and Kaiba is no longer able to summon any monsters. Kaiba ends his turn. Yet again, Xed Cannon could have destroyed a monster on Yugi's side of the field. Kaiba didn't do that. Why didn't he do that? I have no idea. Should he have? Yes. Misplay Kaiba. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Life Shaver. Yugi yet again can't make any plays, so he sets his exchange face down and ends his turn. Why didn't Yugi summon his Big Shield Gardener into defense and also set his Life Shaver face down, which, I'll remind you, Life Shaver, for every turn it's face down on the field, it makes your opponent discard a card for every turn it was set. A very powerful card. And the fact that Yugi has exchange face down, you really don't want a powerful card like this in your hand. It would have been much better on the field. There's no reason why he shouldn't have set it face down. Yugi, now you've misplayed. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws Y Dragon Head. He summons it to the field and activates its effect to equip itself to Xed Cannon. This increases its attack by 400. Kaiba enters his battle phase. He attacks Alpha, and it is destroyed. Kaiba then enters his main phase 2 and activates Lullaby of Obedience. Now, by paying 1000 life points, he can declare the name of a level 8 or higher monster, and if the declared monster is in Yugi's deck, he can add it to his own hand. Kaiba declares Slifer, the Sky Dragon. As Kaiba takes Slifer, he notes how deep it was in Yugi's deck, laughing about how Yugi would never have even drew this card in the duel. Hilariously though, after waiting for Kaiba to walk all the way back over to his side of the field, Yugi smiles and says that he and Kaiba think alike. He activates Exchange. Yugi reveals here that he also had planned to steal Kaiba's Egyptian God. He was going to wait for it to come back into his hand from Light Force Sword, activate his Exchange straight away, and snatch it straight back. However, since Kaiba was nice enough to add Slifer to his hand, he thought, I'll take that one instead. Kaiba now walks back over. Yugi takes Slifer. Kaiba takes Life Shaver. Kaiba ends his turn. I have to reiterate, if Yugi would have set Big Shield Gardener and Life Shaver last turn, the only cards that Kaiba could have picked would basically never have helped him out in this duel. And not only that, Yugi didn't need to use Exchange straight away. Kaiba can't summon Slifer, so why not wait for your turn? And then you can set your Life Shaver face down and maybe just leave the magical hats in your hand and just give him that instead. Oh, and not only that, but also, Yugi gets tunnel vision here. Yugi is so fixated on getting his Slifer the Sky Dragon back, he never even looks at the rest of Kaiba's hand. We know this because Yugi is later shocked to see Kaiba use Power Balance, something he should have known. In fact, speaking of Kaiba, you're not off the hook either. Why didn't you set your 2 trap cards face down during your end phase? Had you done this, when Yugi draws during his next turn, you could activate your Life Shaver straight away. This would force Yugi to discard 1 card. And then you could activate your Power Balance to halve Yugi's hand, leaving him with only 2 cards and allowing Kaiba to draw 2 new cards. This play would have absolutely decimated Yugi's resources and bolstered Kaiba's own. So unfortunately, Kaiba, misplay to you too. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Soul Rope. With little options, Yugi summons Big Shield Gardener into defense. He sets Soul Rope face down and ends his turn. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws Z Metal Tank. Kaiba starts by setting Interdimensional Matter Transporter face down and then summons Z Metal Tank. He then combines all 3 of his monsters together to make the fusion monster XYZ Dragon Cannon. Kaiba enters his battle phase and attacks Big Shield Gardener. It is destroyed, however Yugi plays his Soul Rope. Since a monster was destroyed, he can pay 1000 life points to special summon any level 4 monster from his deck. He chooses King's Knight, and since King's Knight is summoned, while Queen's Knight is on the field, he is also able to special summon his Jack's Knight. Kaiba ends his turn. Shenanigan and misplay time. First of all, fusion summoned monsters can't attack the turn they are fusion summoned according to Battle City rules. So Kaiba attacking with his fusion summoned monster is technically an illegal play. However, I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt. I'm going to say because he didn't use polymerization to summon his XYZ Dragon Cannon, because it was contact fused, it bypassed this rule. Okay, I'm giving you an off there, Kaiba. There you go. What I am not going to let off is the fact that Yugi has 3 monsters on his side of the field. He also has Slifer the Sky Dragon in hand that you absolutely know about. Why not use the effect of your XYZ Dragon Cannon, discard some cards, and, you know, just destroy some of his monsters so he can't summon his Slifer next turn? Even better, let's go back to the start of the turn. Let's not set Interdimensional Matter Transporter face down. Instead, before we even enter our battle phase, let's discard 3 cards to destroy the back row, a monster, and then another monster. Now, Yugi has absolutely no field at all. You can attack directly, deal 2,800 damage, and then next turn, Yugi can do absolutely nothing. And next turn, for your turn, you'd win the duel. I have seen you do this very play in future episodes, so unfortunately, there's no excuse. Misplay. It's back to Yugi, and he draws Pot of Greed. He tributes Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and Jack's Knight to summon Slifer the Sky Dragon. Its attack becomes 3,000 since Yugi's hand contains 3 cards. Yugi attacks, but as he does, Kaiba activates Interdimensional Matter Transporter to banish XYZ until the end of the turn. Since the attack target of a monster was removed due to the anime rulings, Slifer's attack fizzles and no replay occurs. Yugi ends by setting his Pot of Greed face down. As he does, Slifer's attack is reduced, and XYZ returns to the field. Should Yugi have activated his Pot of Greed at the start of his turn, see what I was going to draw it into. Spoilers, it wouldn't have been anything that would have really helped him out, and I understand why he set it face down. It's going to be a nice little trap later. Pop that up, increase your monster attack by 2,000. So, I think it's worth a gamble. No misplay here. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws Command Silencer. Since 3 turns have passed, the effect of Light Force Sword ends, allowing Kaiba to add Obelisk back to his hand. But wait a minute. Shenanigans. Technically, Light Force Sword lasts for 4 turns. Kaiba is getting Obelisk back a turn early. No idea why they changed the effect of this card. It's a bit of a weird thing, because if you actually look at the Japanese version of this card, even if you can't read Japanese, you can see the number 4 right there. So it was a weird thing for them to change. Anyway, due to Battle City rules, fusion monsters used for tribute summons are worth the amount of materials they are made up of. So Kaiba is able to summon his Obelisk the Tormentor by only sacrificing his XYZ cannon. As it is summoned though, Slifer's effect activates. This reduces its attack by 2,000. Kaiba, not willing to crash into Slifer, decides to set Power Balance and Command Silencer face down and ends his turn. For the fact, the dub shows the wrong cards face down here. If we look at the Japanese, it's the right cards. On Kaiba's end phase, the effect of Slifer disappears, since God cards can only be affected by effects for 1 turn. This is the last time I'll mention it, but had Kaiba set Life Shaver and Power Balance the previous turn, he could have made Yugi discard 1 card here with Power Balance and then attack with Obelisk. Yugi would have used Pot of Greed to boost his monster's attack, but then Kaiba could have used Life Shaver to make him discard 2 cards, putting Slifer's attack at 1,000. Slifer would be destroyed, and Kaiba, most likely, would have won the following turn. I'm noticing a little bit of a trend with Kaiba here. Probably should talk about that at the end. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Chain Destruction. Slifer's attack increases. Yugi activates his face-down Pot of Greed and draws 2 new cards. He gets Card Destruction and Disgraceful Charity. Yugi attempts to attack with Slifer, however Kaiba activates his Command Silencer to negate a declaration of an attack. He is also able to draw 1 new card. He gets Kaiser Seahorse. Yugi sets Card Destruction and Disgraceful Charity face down and ends his turn. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws Blade Knight. Yugi immediately activates his Card Destruction. This forces both players to discard their entire hands and draw the same amount. Yugi discards Collected Power, Magical Hats, and Chain Destruction. He then draws 3 new cards, which are Karibo, Spell Textbook, and Electromagnetic Turtle. Kaiba discards his Life Shaver, Kaiser Seahorse, and Blade Knight. He then draws Sword of Soul, Thirst for Compensation, and Card Guard. Yugi then plays his Disgraceful Charity. This allows both players to add all the cards they just discarded back to their hands. Both players now have 6 cards each in their hands. Kaiba activates his Thirst for Compensation. Since Yugi added a card to his hand, Kaiba can special summon 2 level 4 monsters from his hand in face of defense. Kaiba summons Blade Knight and Sword of Soul. As they are summoned, Slifer's effect attempts to activate. However, Kaiba plays his quick play Card Guard, and by discarding Kaiser Seahorse, Kaiba's monsters are unable to be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn. Kaiba attempts to go for game by activating activating his Obelisk's effect. By attributing 2 monsters, he can deal 4,000 damage to every monster on the opponent's field, and then inflict 4,000 damage to the opponent. Since Slifer has over 4,000 attack points, it is not destroyed. However, the direct damage is still incoming. Luckily, Yugi discards Karibo to reduce the damage to 0. Kaiba sets Life Shaver face down and ends his turn. Had Yugi not jumped the gun and used card destruction at the start of Kaiba's turn, he could have done this in the battle phase. When Obelisk attacks, Yugi does his card destruction disgraceful charity combo. Kaiba wouldn't have been able to do a thing about it. And how would the turn be different? Well, Obelisk would be destroyed, Kaiba would take 2,000 damage, and now Kaiba would be on the back foot. Misplay Yugi. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Necromancy. Yugi immediately enters his battle phase and attacks Obelisk. However, Kaiba activates Power Balance. This forces Yugi to discard half the cards in his hand, and then Kaiba draws the amount discarded. Yugi, holding 6 cards, discards Collected Power, Electromagnetic Turtle, and Chain Destruction. Slifer's attack is reduced to 3,000. Kaiba then draws 3 cards, 2 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon and Polymerization. Before Slifer can be destroyed by battle, Yugi plays Necromancy, which I'd like to point out isn't a quick play spell, and thus means Yugi activating it here is actually an illegal move. So shenanigans again. Regardless anyway, Necromancy's effect is 4 random monsters from Kaiba's graveyard get special summoned to the field in defense. However, every time one is destroyed, all other monsters Kaiba has will lose 600 attack. As they are summoned, Slifer's effect kicks in, reducing all of their defenses by 2,000 and thus destroying all 4. This, in turn, weakens Obelisk by 2,400 attack. Yugi now has the upper hand. However, Kaiba reveals that his Sword of Soul has the effect that when it is destroyed, it can increase the attack of a monster on the field by 1,000. Now, Kaiba has the upper hand. However, Yugi reveals his Electromagnetic Turtle's effect in the grave. Once, while it's in there, he can end the battle phase immediately. He does this and sets Spell Textbook face down and ends his turn. As he does, Obelisk's attack returns to normal. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws Final Attack Orders. Kaiba immediately enters his battle phase and attacks. Yugi activates Spell Textbook. Now, by discarding all of the cards in his hand, which is only magical hats, he can draw 1 card. And if it is a spell, he can activate it immediately. Yugi draws, and what else does he get but the ultimate spell card, Card of Sanctity. It is activated straight away, allowing both players to draw until they have 6 cards in their hand. Yugi draws 6, which are Dark Magician, Magic Formula, Spellbinding Circle, Magician's Selection, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and a mysterious card that is never actually shown, and it's about to get discarded, so it doesn't really matter. So, let's just say it's Gaia the Fierce Knight. Kaiba only draws 2 cards. He gets Card of Demise and Cloning. With 6,000 attack, it looks as if Obelisk is about to be destroyed. However, Kaiba activates Life Shaver. Since it's been set for 2 turns, Yugi discards 2 cards. He sends Dark Magician and Gaia the Fierce Knight to the grave. Now, since both monsters have 4,000 attack, both are destroyed in the battle. Kaiba ends his turn by setting Cloning face down. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Gazelle, the King of Mythical Beasts. He summons it into defense. However, as he does, Kaiba activates Cloning to summon a clone token of Gazelle to his side of the field. Yugi ends by setting Magic Formula face down. It's back to Kaiba and he draws Cost Down. He activates it to lower the level of 1 Blue Eyes in his hand by 2. Now, a level 6, he sacrifices Gazelle to summon Blue Eyes to the field. He uses it to attack and destroy Yugi's Gazelle. Kaiba ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Monster Reborn. He activates it to special summon the Dark Magician he discarded 3 turns ago. Yugi sets Spellbinding Circle face down and ends his turn. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws Magical Trick Mirror. He sets it straight away to reduce the amount of cards in his hand. Then he plays Card of Demise to allow him to draw cards until he has 5. However, after 5 turns, he must discard his entire hand. Don't worry, the duel will end before that 5th turn ever happens. Since he has 3 cards in hand, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Polymerization, and Final Attack Orders, he is only able to draw 2 cards. He gets a 3rd Blue Eyes White Dragon and Lord of D. Kaiba summons Lord of D in attack. and then he ends his turn. Why didn't Kaiba attack over Dark Magician with Blue Eyes? Well, to be fair, he's playing cautiously, and he's right to be so. Kaiba deduced with his past knowledge of Yugi's deck that his face down cards would be an attack boosting ability for Dark Magician and a card that would hinder his monster. By summoning Lord of D, however, he has prevented his dragon from being targeted by the detrimental effect. However, he knows if he attacks into Dark Magician, he will most likely boost the monster and will most likely lose his own. So that's fine. What's not fine though is the fact that he's got Polymerization in his hand. If he used Polymerization here, he could make his Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. He can attack into Dark Magician and inflict 1,500 damage. Even if Yugi used his face down, it wouldn't have helped him. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Beta the Magnet Warrior. He summons it in defense and then uses Dark Magician to attack Lord of D. Since one of his monsters is being attacked, Kaiba is able to activate his magical trick Mirror. With its effect, he can activate one spell from Yugi's grave immediately. He chooses Monster Reborn and brings back Obelisk the Tormentor into defense. Due to Egyptian god cards' anime effect, when they are summoned to the field in defense during the declaration of an attack, that monster attacking is now forced to attack it instead. Dark Magician collides with Obelisk, costing Yugi 1,500 life points. Yugi sets Magician's selection face down and ends his turn. As he does, Obelisk returns to the grave. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws the Flute of Summoning Dragon. He switches Lord of D into defense, and then activates the Flute of Summoning Dragon. Due to its anime effect, both players can now special summon up to 2 dragon monsters in their hands to the field. Kaiba summons his 2 Blue Eyes White Dragon, while Yugi summons, to Kaiba's surprise, Joey's Red Eyes Black Dragon. Kaiba enters his battle phase. The first Blue Eyes attacks Dark Magician. However, Yugi activates Magician's Selection to negate the attack and destroy the weakest monster on Kaiba's side of the field, which is Lord of D. The second Blue Eyes attacks and destroys Beta the Magnet Warrior, and the final one attacks Red Eyes. However, now since Lord of D is no longer protecting dragons from being targeted by card effects, Yugi plays his Spellbinding Circle to reduce the attack of Blue Eyes by 700. Yugi chooses not to negate the attack, and so Red Eyes destroys the weakened Blue Eyes. Kaiba ends by setting Polymerization and final attack orders face down. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Double Spell. He sets it face down and then switches Red Eyes into defense. However, Kaiba plays Final Attack Orders, which forces all monsters into attack position and makes them unable to change their positions. And not only that, both players now pick 3 cards from their decks. They keep those cards while sending all other cards to the grave. The cards chosen are then put back into the deck in whatever order the owner chooses. Yugi picks Defusion, Diffusion Wave Motion, and a final card that will never be drawn. Kaiba picks Monster Reborn, Absorb Spell, and also a final card that will never be drawn. Let me know in the comments, what do you think Kaiba and Yugi picked for their final cards? Let me know. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws Monster Reborn. He activates it, bringing back his destroyed Blue Eyes White Dragon. He then activates his face down Polymerization to fuse all 3 together to make Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Yugi responds by activating his face down Double Spell. With it, Yugi can activate all spell cards Kaiba just used. Yugi first uses Monster Reborn to special summon Buster Blader. This card was sent to the grave when his deck got wiped. Next, he activates Polymerization. He merges Dark Magician and Buster Blader together to make Dark Paladin. Due to Dark Paladin's effect, it gains 500 attack for each dragon monster on the field. With Red Eyes and Blue Eyes on the field, its attack increases to 3,900. Kaiba, unable to attack due to Battle City Fusion rules I guess, is forced to end his turn. And here is where I reveal the disappointing truth about this turn. Had Kaiba simply brought back his Obelisk the Tormentor, he could have sacrificed his 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons and won the duel by inflicting 4,000 damage that Yugi would have been completely unable to stop. Huge misplay, Kaiba. You could have won right here. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Defusion. He sets it face down and ends his turn. It's Kaiba's turn and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Absorb Spell. Some weird stuff happens here, but follow me. Kaiba attacks. However, who he attacks is never actually stated or shown. It's assumed Red Eyes, because that way he can deal enough damage to win. However, this is contradicted by the fact that when Kaiba attacks, Yugi activates Magic Formula to boost Dark Paladin's attack by 500. So maybe he was trying to destroy Dark Paladin, but he wouldn't have won, so that's a bit weird. Plus, why did Yugi use Magic Formula? It's going to give Dark Paladin 4,400 attack. that's not enough to get over Blue Eyes, so pointless. But it doesn't matter anyway, because Kaiba activates his Absorb spell, which sucks up the attack boost to his monster instead. Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon now has 5,000 attack. But that doesn't matter. None of that play just mattered, because Yugi's just going to use Defusion right now and split up Blue Eyes into the 3 separate monsters. Now, since there are 4 dragons on the field, Dark Paladin's attack increases to 4,900. Kaiba, unable to win, ends his turn. Now it's Yugi's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets Diffusion Wave Motion. Yugi, more than capable of winning by simply just attacking into Blue Eyes, decides instead to flex. He pays 1,000 life points to use Diffusion Wave Motion. Now, Dark Paladin can attack every monster on Kaiba's side of the field. Yugi attacks all 3 Blue Eyes with Dark Paladin. Yugi wins the duel. The duel begins and Kaiba goes first. His opening hand consists of Ryukishin Powered, Crush Card, Shrink, Blade Knight, Enemy Controller, and Blue Eyes White Dragon. He starts by summoning Ryukishin Powered in attack, and then sets both his Shrink and Crush Card face down. Kaiba ends his turn. It's Joey's turn and he draws. His opening hand consists of Gearfried the Iron Knight, Swordsman of Landstar, Little Wingard, Legendary Sword, Nutrient Z, and Grave Robber. He begins by summoning Gearfried the Iron Knight. Joey declares that thanks to Gearfried's effect, which is technically that equip cards can't be equipped to it, how Joey describes it, it seems as if spell cards just don't affect it at all. And so, most likely whatever Kaiba has face down, Joey's attack will be able to be successful. Confident with this, Joey declares his attack. When he does, Kaiba activates his face down Shrink. And while Joey was right in calling Kaiba's play, since Shrink would have halved his monster's attack and got him destroyed, unfortunately, Gearfried is not the target. Kaiba chooses his own monster. Its attack is halved, and Joey successfully destroys it. What's the deal with this? Well, unfortunately, he's fell right into Kaiba's trap. As now, the criteria for Kaiba's other face down, Crush Card Virus, have been met. Since a dark monster with less than 1,000 attack was destroyed by battle, every monster on Joey's side of the field, in his hand, and in his deck that has 1,500 or more attack, is sent to the graveyard. Also, for as long as this card remains in the graveyard, all those monsters that were sent cannot be special summoned. Joey is in a terrible position. The majority of his powerful monsters that he had gained throughout Battle City are now locked out of the duel. If there is one tiny little silver lining in this, it's the fact that this duel now mirrors the duel Kaiba and Yugi had way back in Duelist Kingdom, where Kaiba used Crush Card Virus on Yugi, and Yugi ultimately was going to win that duel but had to surrender in the end. Let's see if Joey can win with Crush Card. Anyway, Joey reluctantly ends his turn. And it is here that the first misplay happens. Not a big one, but one nonetheless. He has 2 cards in his hand that he could absolutely set face down here. Nutrient Z and Grave Robber. If he sets his Grave Robber now, at any point during the duel, he can steal a card from Kaiba's grave. And already, he could steal a Crush Card Virus if he wanted to, or he could even steal a Shrink. Both very useful. Could he use Crush Card Virus? No, because Joey doesn't actually have any dark monsters with less than 1,000 attack in his deck. It's not really an option. But Shrink, that could be helpful. The same for Nutrient Z. Nutrient Z, if he's about to take 2,000 damage, he gains 4,000 life points before that damage is dealt. You should have that on the field all the time. You never know when you get OTK'd. Set that straight away. So misplay Joey. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws Lejin, the mystical genie of the lamp. He summons it to the field and then enters his battle phase. He uses it to attack Joey directly. Kaiba ends his turn. It's Joey's turn and he draws Graceful Dice. We see his hand and, oh boy, does the dub team like to make me laugh sometimes. 2 of Joey's cards have morphed into Crush Card Virus and Collected Power. As you all probably know, that's wrong. This is what his hand is supposed to look like. Dub error nonetheless. Anyway, Joey summons Swordsman of Landstar to the field. Now, since he controls a monster with 500 or less attack, he can activate his spell, Graceful Dice. By rolling a die, he can multiply the attack of Swordsman of Landstar by the result. He gets a 4, and Swordsman's attack is quadrupled. Joey attacks and destroys Kaiba's Lejin. Joey ends his turn, and as he does, the effect of Graceful Dice ends. It's back to Kaiba and he draws Absorb spell. He summons Blade Knight and immediately uses it to attack and destroy Swordsman of Landstar. Kaiba then moves to his main phase 2 and sets Absorb spell face down. Kaiba ends his turn. Let's pause the duel right here, because, believe it or not, there is a play that Joey could have done that could have won him the duel the next turn. However, there is a very big but attached to that statement that we will cover a little bit later, but first, how could Joey have won next turn? Let's go back to the start of Joey's last turn. He draws Graceful Dice and summons Swordsman of Landstar. This time, however, what he should do is set Graceful Dice, Nutrient Z, and Grave Robber all face down, and simply end his turn there. Now, when Kaiba's turn starts, yes, he might see through this obvious trap. Knowing Kaiba, he will still probably try to attack through it. And if he decides to do that, then he has 3 different plays to choose from. Play number 1, summon his Blade Knight alongside Le Jin. Attack Swordsman with Le Jin. Joey chains Graceful Dice. Le Jin is destroyed, and Kaiba is forced to end his turn here. Play number 2, Kaiba uses enemy controller on Swordsman of Landstar. He chooses to destroy it, and now with no monsters on Joey's side of the field, he attacks with both of his and wins the duel. However, would Kaiba waste his enemy controller on a 500 attack point monster? I doubt it. So this is where we go to the third play, and the most likely. Kaiba uses enemy controller on Swordsman of Landstar. He sacrifices his Le Jin and the Swordsman to summon Blue Eyes White Dragon from his hand. By doing this, Graceful Dice is now rendered useless. Kaiba can attack directly for seemingly gain. However, this is where Joey plays his trap, Nutrient Z, to increase his life points to 6,200, and then when Blue Eyes' attack goes through, he will be left with 3,200. Technically, more than what he started with. Kaiba would then be forced to set his Absorb spell face down and end his turn. And this is where Joey could make the final play. Joey draws, but it doesn't really matter what it is, as all he has to do is activate his face down Card Robber, steal enemy controller, activate it, take control of Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then attack directly with it, since Kaiba only has 2,800 life points. So Joey wins the duel, right? Well, I thought so too, until I really read what enemy controller does in the anime. Like most people, your go-to is to think of the enemy controller that we have in the real world. That just takes control of your monster, and you can sacrifice that if you want to. However, let's remind everyone exactly what this card can do in the anime. Give a command to one of your opponent's monsters on the field with the enemy controller. Either explode or sacrifice. Nowhere in its effect does it state it takes control of an opponent's monster. So why do we think this? Well, that's because in the 2 duels that it was used in, that's exactly what we see it do, as the monsters always move from the opponent's side of the field over to Kaiba's. However, enemy controller does not take control of your opponent's monsters. That visual of the monsters moving over to the other side of the field, it's purely aesthetic. All that's happening when you use the sacrifice effect is it simply makes the monster targeted be able to be sacrificed as if it was your own. Then moving over to your side of the field, that's just for the audience. Proof for this is the fact that when Kaiba uses Soul Exchange in his duel with Yugi, the monsters targeted actually move over to his side of the field as well as he attempts to sacrifice them. However, if you read the card's effect, it simply says both players contribute monsters controlled by their opponents. So after explaining all that and taking you all through this hypothetical scenario where I said that Joey can win, I am an absolute liar. I'm sorry, I went through this whole thing, I'm like, Joey's got this in the bag, and then I sort of really thought about it, I'm like, no, it's wrong. So, I'm sorry I wasted your time, but we learned something. Some people might have learnt something. I did do a poll on this and people were just as confused as I was at first, so I think it's fine. Anyway, let's get back to the actual duel, shall we? It's Joey's turn and he draws Scapegoat. He summons his little Wingard into attack and then attempts to equip it with the legendary sword to boost its attack to 1700. However, Kaiba plays his face down Absorb spell, which switches the target of legendary sword to Blade Knight. It has its attack increased to 1900 instead. With no moves left, Joey reluctantly sets his Scapegoat face down and ends his turn. It's back to Kaiba and he draws Cost Down. He activates his enemy controller and uses its second effect by paying 1000 life points and entering the code
Left, right, A, B.
He is now able to sacrifice one of Joey's monsters. Kaiba then activates his spell Cost Down to reduce the levels of all the cards in his hand by 2. Now with a level 6 Blue Eyes White Dragon in hand, he is able to summon it straight to the field by sacrificing only Little Wingard. And not only that, but since Kaiba's hand is now empty, the effect of Blade Knight kicks in, increasing its own attack by a further 400. Kaiba enters his battle phase and orders Blue Eyes White Dragon to attack Joey directly. However, Joey activates his face down Scapegoat to special summon 4 sheep tokens. Blue Eyes and Blade Knight destroy 1 each, and Kaiba ends his turn. It's Joey's turn and he draws Battle Warrior. He finally sets his Grave Robber face down, and then, with very little else to do, he summons his Battle Warrior into defense. Joey ends his turn. It's back to Kaiba and he draws the most broken card of all time, Card of Demise. He activates it, and thanks to its effect, it allows him to draw until he has 5 cards in his hand. However, he has to discard his entire hand after 5 turns. Like that will ever happen. Kaiba draws Kaiser Seahorse, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Interdimensional Matter Transporter, Quick Attack, and Polymerization. He summons Kaiser Seahorse and uses it, Blue Eyes, and Blade Knight to wipe out Joey's entire field. Kaiba ends his turn. Could Kaiba have set Interdimensional Matter Transporter face down and helped him out in the next turn that's coming up? Of course he could have. Did he? No, so misplay Kaiba. It's back to Joey and he draws Pot of Greed. He activates it and draws 2 new cards. He gets Monster Reborn and Hayabusa Knight. Joey activates his set, Grave Robber, which is able to steal 1 card from Kaiba's grave. He declares Enemy Controller. Joey uses it straight away. He pays 1,000 life points and chooses to use the first effect to destroy 1 monster on the field. He enters the code
Up, left, down, right, A!
This then destroys Kaiba's Blue Eyes White Dragon. Bet you wish you set that Interdimensional Matter Transporter face down now, Kaiba. Anyway, now with Blue Eyes in the grave, Joey, to Kaiba's horror, plays Monster Reborn and brings back Blue Eyes White Dragon to his side of the field. He uses it to attack and destroy Kaiba's Blade Knight. Joey summons his Hayabusa Knight into defense, sets Nutrient Z face down, and ends his turn. It's Kaiba's turn and he is fuming. He draws Monster Reborn. He tributes his Kaiser Seahorse to summon his second Blue Eyes White Dragon. This was possible as Kaiser Seahorse is treated as 2 tributes for the summon of a light monster. Kaiba reveals that he would rather see his Blue Eyes go back into the grave than be in the hands of someone so mediocre, and so he crashes his Blue Eyes into Joey's. Both are destroyed. However, before it looks like Kaiba has simply gone mad, he reveals he has Monster Reborn, resurrecting his Blue Eyes White Dragon back during the second main phase. Kaiba ends his turn, and as he does, he goes absolutely ham on Joey.
You are worthless, and you shouldn't have been in my tournament in the first place! Now then, go ahead and make your move, cause you've wasted enough of my time already!
It's Joey's turn, and he draws Baby Dragon. With very little options, all Joey can do is summon it into defense and end his turn. It's Kaiba's turn and he draws Stop Defense. He immediately activates it to switch Joey's Hayabusa Knight into attack. He then attacks with Blue Eyes White Dragon, attempted to go for game, but Joey activates his face down Nutrient Z, which, when he's about to take 2,000 or more damage, allows him to increase his life points by 4,000 before the damage is dealt. Joey's life points increase, then Blue Eyes deals 2,000 damage. Kaiba sets his Interdimensional Matter Transporter face down and ends his turn. It's Joey's turn and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and he gets his ever-faithful Time Wizard. Fun fact about Anime Time Wizard, it can be used as a spell card, so you can just activate it like a spell to use its Time Roulette, and that's what happens here. Joey activates it, and due to its effect, the Time Roulette begins. It is successful, and all monsters on the field begin to age 1,000 years. Joey's Baby Dragon ages and transforms into the fusion monster, Thousand Dragon. However, before Kaiba's Blue Eyes can be affected by the Time Roulette, Kaiba reveals his face down Interdimensional Matter Transporter, which allows him to banish Blue Eyes until the end phase. Now, everyone at home is probably screaming at Joey, just attack! You can win the duel, just attack directly, you've won. However, unfortunately, you need to know something about the Battle City rules. Unfortunately, fusion summoned monsters can't attack the turn they are summoned. Why Kaiba would implement a rule like this when he himself plays a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, I don't know, for reasons, but unfortunately due to this, Joey can't attack and win this turn. So unfortunately, the end phase occurs and Blue Eyes White Dragon returns to the field. We do get a great moment from Joey here, where he reveals that he was pretty sure that Kaiba was going to win this duel anyway. However, it's Kaiba's turn and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets Thunder Dragon. He activates its effect, allowing him to discard it to add 2 more copies of itself from the deck. He does this and then activates his Polymerization to fuse the 2 monsters together to make Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. However, hang on, he's done the same thing as Joey. He can't attack with his fusion summoned monster the turn it's fusion summoned. Joey can survive another turn. You would be right. However, there is one card that allows fusion summoned monsters to attack the turn they were fusion summoned, and Kaiba has it. Quick Attack. He activates Quick Attack, allowing Twin-Handed Thunder Dragon to attack and destroy Thousand Dragon. Kaiba then uses his Blue Eyes White Dragon to attack Joey directly, reducing his life points down to 0, and winning him the duel. Congratulations, Yugi and Marik. You have bested every single opponent that has come your way. Now it is time to enter the Battle City Finals. Best of luck to the both of you, but without further ado, let the Battle City Finals begin. Before the duel begins, Kaiba gives Yugi Fiend's Sanctuary, a quick play spell that Kaiba had planned to use against Marik to counter his Egyptian god's one-turn kill combo. Yugi, trusting in Kaiba, adds this card to his deck. Following this, we get the best pre-duel cut banter I have seen in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh franchise.
Yes, shuffle well, Pharaoh, and hope with all of your soul that Ra ends up on the bottom.
And with that, the duel begins. Marik immediately plunges it into a shadow game. Now, whenever a monster is destroyed, the owner feels the same pain that that monster felt at its destruction. Also, whenever life point damage occurs, the duelist's other half will lose part of their souls. The twist on this that Marik doesn't reveal is that if Marik were to somehow lose this duel, his other half would be deleted, but he would continue to live. Whereas for Pharaoh Atem, since Yugi is his vessel, if he loses his vessel, he also dies as well. So Marik has pretty much got himself a get out of jail free card. That is, unless Yugi does something during this duel. Marik draws for his opening turn. His hand consists of the Winged Dragon of Ra, Vampiric Leech, Duragado, Dark Spell Regeneration, Zombie's Jewel, and Vengeful Bog Spirit. Marik starts by summoning his Vampiric Leech to the field. Thanks to its effect, it is able to attack despite being the first turn. Yugi takes the first damage of the duel. Vampiric Leech's second effect activates. By discarding one card, Marik can switch it into defense. Marik discards his Egyptian god, the Winged Dragon of Ra, and Vampiric Leech switches to defense. Due to the rules of Battle City, which I have covered here, Marik doesn't reveal what card he sends, nor can Yugi check what card is in Marik's graveyard due to a lack of public knowledge disclosure in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. I say that, but regardless, Yugi just assumes the card he dumped in the grave was the Winged Dragon of Ra because that's what Marik does. He dumps the Winged Dragon of Ra in the graveyard to bring it back all the time. And yeah, Yugi was right. Marik ends his turn by setting Zombie's Jewel face down. It's Yugi's turn and he draws. His opening hand consists of Queen's Knight, King's Knight, Karibo, Defusion, Exchange, and Multiply. Yugi summons his Queen's Knight and immediately enters his battle phase. He attacks and destroys Vampiric Leech. Yugi ends his turn by setting Exchange and Multiply face down. It's Marik's turn and he creepily licks his lips. Oh my. He draws and gets Left Arm Offering. Marik summons his Duragado to the field. He enters his battle phase and attacks and destroys Queen's Knight. Marik moves to his main phase 2 and sets Dark Spell Regeneration and Left Arm Offering face down and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Ragnarok. This card will become tremendously important on the final turn of the duel. But for now, Marik interrupts Yugi's turn. He activates his set Left Arm Offering. Due to its effect, Marik can discard his entire hand in order to add any spell in his deck straight to his hand. Marik sends the only card in his hand, Vengeful Bog Spirit, to the grave. This lets him add Monster Reborn. Yugi, having absolutely none of this, activates his set spell, Exchange. This forces both players to steal one card from each other's hands. Yugi takes Marik's Monster Reborn, while Marik takes Yugi's Defusion. Now, you could make a case that Marik should have taken King's Knight, because if he took King's Knight, then Yugi wouldn't be able to do his face card combo. But there is merit in Marik taking Defusion, as Defusion is a card that can counter one of the Winged Dragon of Ra's abilities. By taking Defusion from Yugi's hand, it prevents Yugi from defusing him and Ra should he use that effect. Note as well, conveniently, the last card in Yugi's hand, he obscures. We can't really see what the card is, however, from reverse engineering the duel, I know that this card is Ragnarok, the card that is ultimately going to win Yugi the duel. And while I don't think the card was obscured for Marik, this was mainly done for us, the audience, I just kind of think that's funny because had Marik taken that card, then this would have ultimately meant that Yugi couldn't win with that card later on. But it would have been a dead card for Marik to have in his hand because he wouldn't have been able to activate it at all. So the question then becomes, was defusion the right choice? Yeah, I think it was. I don't think there's any misplays here. Yugi, now in control of Marik's Monster Reborn, activates it immediately. He brings back his Queen's Knight. Due to the anime's game mechanics, Monster Reborn goes to Yugi's grave, despite being owned by Marik. That'll become important later, don't worry about it for now. Yugi follows this up by summoning his King's Knight to the field. By summoning King's Knight, he can then special summon his Jack's Knight from his deck. Yugi moves into his battle phase, but before he can declare an attack, he gets a bad feeling, and so decides to play cautiously, and ends his turn without attacking. This is the same thing that happened to Joey during his duel against Marik. Both him and Yugi have had bad feelings about Marik's set cards. This is because Marik gives off an aura that you're playing right into his trap. And this messes with duelists' confidence. In this case, was not attacking the right choice for Yugi? Well, with Dark Spell Regeneration face down, had Yugi attacked, then Marik would have summoned Ra 2 turns earlier than he normally would have. Ra would have obliterated whatever monster had declared the attack, but ultimately would have gone to the grave at the end of the turn. On Marik's next turn, he would get his Ra back to the field. He would then summon a monster in his hand, tribute all of his life points and all of his monster's attack points in order to attack Yugi's attack position knight. This attack would result in game for Marik. However, with Karibo in Yugi's hand, he could discard it to nullify the damage he would have taken. Can Karibo negate the damage from an Egyptian god? Well, direct attack damage? I'm not too sure. Karibo has been used in the past to negate Obelisk's effect damage ability. When he tributes 2 monsters, wipes the opponent's field, Yugi discarded it to make it so that he wouldn't take any damage. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say Karibo could have tanked the hit. This would mean that Marik would be forced to use his defusion, diffusing Ra, getting back his life points. It's unclear if Marik could refuse with Ra again in the middle of the battle phase, but most likely he couldn't. And so Marik would either have to use his Card of Sanctity now to try and build up some defenses, or just wait for his next turn. After this, we move entirely into speculation territory. But to answer the question, was not attacking the right choice? Well, either way was fine. If he attacked, he would have been in this situation now. If he didn't attack, well, ultimately he's going to win the duel based on it, so who would have known? No misplay, Yugi. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Card of Sanctity. Marik, wanting Yugi to get out one of his Egyptian god cards, sets his defusion face down, and then activates Card of Sanctity. This allows both players to draw until they have 6 cards in their hand. Marik draws 6 new cards. He gets Jam Defender, Polymerization, Swallowtail Spike Lizard, Class System, Bait Doll, and Mask of Remnants. Yugi, with 2 cards already in his hand, draws 4 new cards. He gets Dark Magician Girl, Gazelle, the King of Mythical Beasts, Magical Dimension, and Dark Magician. Marik switches his Duragado into defense and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Slifer, the Sky Dragon. Yugi tributes his Queens, Kings, and Jack's Knight in order to summon his Egyptian god, Slifer. Due to its effect, it gains 1000 attack and defense for each card in Yugi's hand. Since there are 6, it has 6000 attack. Yugi, more confident with a god card on his field, decides to risk an attack, despite Marik's face downs. Marik does reveal that Yugi has fallen into his trap and activates Dark Spell Regeneration. Now, since a monster declared an attack, this card can activate a spell from Yugi's grave. He activates his own Monster Reborn. Doing this allows Marik to resurrect the Winged Dragon of Ra. Marik summons it in its Immortal Phoenix mode. In this mode, Ra is immune to everything, meaning not only is it immune to being destroyed by battle, but not even Slifer's ability has an effect on Ra. Furthermore, Marik pays 1000 life points in order to use Ra's ability. This effect orders Ra to attack and destroy any monster he wishes. He does so and uses Ra to destroy Slifer. As the battle phase comes to an end, Ra sends itself to the grave, since spell and trap effects wear off from gods after one turn. Marik, however, isn't done. He activates his zombie jewel trap, which lets him add back Monster Reborn from Yugi's grave. By doing this play, however, Yugi is allowed to draw one new card. Without even looking, Yugi draws and immediately sets it face down. The referee gets mad at Yugi for this, since he didn't look at the card, and makes the point that if you just set a monster, that would be shenanigans and a disqualifiable action. However, luckily, Kaiba vouches for Yugi, and it is revealed the card he set was the card that Kaiba gave him, Fiend's Sanctuary. The reason that Yugi didn't look at this card was because he could sense Kaiba's will in the card. So he didn't need to look, he knew what it was straight away and just set it face down. This could also be a little bit of foreshadowing for the end of the series, where Yami Yugi is able to just draw cards without even looking at them, because he's just that uber powerful at the end of the series. So kind of cool if that's the case. Also, by the way, side note, I like how the referee kicks off at this, but you know, you can just disintegrate somebody's soul over there. That's no problem. But God forbid you set a card without looking at it. My goodness. It's back to Marik, and he draws Metal Reflect Slime. Marik immediately activates Monster Reborn to bring back Ra. This time, however, he uses Ra's second effect. By paying all but one of his life points, he can increase the attack and defense of Ra by the amount he pays. This act also fuses Marik with the Egyptian god. Following this, Marik also tributes his Juragado through Ra's effect. This lets him boost Ra's attack even further. Marik uses Ra to attack Yugi directly. However, Yugi activates his set, Fiend's Sanctuary. This card summons a Metal Fiend token to Yugi's side of the field. The monster's effect makes it so that monsters must attack this token, and when they do, any damage that would be inflicted is instead redirected to Marik's life points. If this attack connects, Yugi will win the duel. And with Marik already having declared his attack and unable to stop the attack, it seems as if that's the case. However, luckily, Marik took Defusion from Yugi. He activates it to separate himself from Ra. Since technically Marik is fused with Ra, it's classed as a fusion monster, I guess, so it's fine to defuse the two. All the attack points Ra had are added back to Marik's life points. With Monster Reborn only able to last one turn, Ra returns back to the grave. With no more plays, Marik sets his Metal Reflect Slime trap face down and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Obelisk the Tormentor. On Yugi's standby phase, he is forced to pay 1000 life points for the maintenance cost of his Metal Fiend token. He pays this and then moves into his main phase. He activates his set spell, Multiply. This card lets him special summon duplicate clones of a monster with less than 500 attack on his field. He multiplies his Metal Fiend token by 3. Now, with 3 monsters on his field, he has enough tributes to summon Obelisk. Note, it was possible for Yugi to multiply his monster by 5, completely filling up his field. However, there's 2 reasons why he doesn't need to do this. One is that he'd have to pay 1000 life points for each of the Metal Fiend tokens he has in the field during his standby phases. That's a chunky bit of damage. We don't want to do that. 2, while having Obelisk on the field with 2 tributable monsters would be pretty awesome, the fact that Marik has nothing on his field, it's a bit of a waste. So I think Yugi made the right call, just getting out 3 tokens. Now Yugi tributes all 3 tokens to summon Obelisk the Tormentor. With an open field, Yugi attacks Marik directly. Marik takes 4000 damage, and the equivalent physical damage is dealt to him. Honestly, it looked painful. After recovering from the blow, Marik activates his set trap, Metal Reflect Slime. Since he lost over half his life points from an attack, this trap card can be summoned as a copy of the attacking monster, with a defense stat equal to 3/4 the attack of the opponent's monster. Why make it 3/4? It's just so weird. Okay, anime. With no further plays, Yugi sets his Magical Dimension face down and ends his turn. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Revival Jam. He summons it to the field into defense. He then activates Polymerization to fuse his Slime token and Revival Jam together to make his Egyptian God Slime. While this monster is on the field, its name is always treated as Revival Jam. Its attack and defense are equal to the defense of the Metal Reflect Slime used for its fusion summon. Also, if it is destroyed by battle, it simply resummons itself straight to the field. With this unbeatable wall, Marik ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Big Shield Gardener. He summons it into defense. Unaware of Egyptian God Slime's effect, he uses Obelisk to attack it. However, Yugi quickly finds out is incapable of being destroyed by battle. With no further plays, Yugi ends his turn. In hindsight, now that I think about it, maybe, just maybe, Yugi could have put one more Metal Fiend token on his field. Yes, he'd have paid 1,000 life points on his turn, but it would have meant he could have tribute that and the Big Shield Gardener to use Obelisk's effect to wipe Marik's field and then deal 4,000 damage and then instantly win the duel on this turn. That is true, that is true. And in hindsight as well, he's got Dark Magician Girl in his hand, so if the Metal Fiend token is such an issue, he can just tribute that away for Dark Magician Girl, so he doesn't have to pay the maintenance cost anymore. So, alright, you guys win. Yes, you're right. He should have summoned more tokens if that was available, but I don't know. He summons like 5 with Karibos normally, so I don't see why he couldn't do it with a Metal Fiend token. So, yeah, misplay Yugi. You should have summoned another Metal Fiend token to the field with your Multiply spell, and you could have clapped this turn. Oh well, it's Marik's turn, and he draws Boganian. He sets Jam Defender face down and then summons Boganian into defense. Now, while this monster remains in the field, Yugi will take 300 damage each time he ends his turn. Marik ends his turn. It's back to Yugi, and he draws Soul Taker. He sets it face down straight away, and then tributes Big Shield Gardener to summon Dark Magician Girl. Yugi enters his battle phase and uses Dark Magician Girl to attack Boganian. However, Marik activates his Jam Defender, which forces all monsters to attack Egyptian God Slime. Since Slime had 3,000 defense, Yugi takes the difference as damage. Yugi ends his turn, and as he does, Boganian deals 300 damage. Why Yugi didn't just attack with Obelisk, by the way, in that battle phase? I mean, I know he doesn't know where his face downs are, but attacking with an Egyptian god is much safer than attacking with a Dark Magician Girl. What if it was like a magic cylinder or something? I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna call that misplay Yugi. Should have attacked with Obelisk. He wouldn't have taken any damage this turn as well. It's Marik's turn, and he draws Magical Stone Excavation. He activates it straight away by discarding 2 cards in his hand. By doing so, he can add 1 spell in his grave to his hand. The cards he sent were Bait Doll and Mask of Remnants. Due to the effect of Magical Stone Excavation, however, he's unable to use it this turn. And so, Marik sets his class system face down and summons Swallowtail Spike Lizard into defense. Due to this monster's effect, it will increase Marik's life points by 1,000 during each of his standby phases. With that, Marik ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Monster Reborn. He summons Gazelle, the king of mythical beasts, into defense. He then sets Monster Reborn and Ragnarok face down. As Yugi goes to end his turn, Boganian inflicts 300 damage to Yugi. It's Marik's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets Surprise Attack from Beyond. When Marik's standby phase occurs, he gains 1,000 life points thanks to his lizard. Marik, wasting no time, activates Monster Reborn to bring back the Winged Dragon of Ra. He summons it in its Immortal Phoenix mode. He pays 1,000 life points to use its effect. He orders it to attack and destroy Obelisk. However, Yugi plays his set, Monster Reborn. This allows him to bring back Slifer the Sky Dragon into defense. Due to the effect of Slifer, when summoned into defense during the battle phase, whatever attack was declared is redirected to Slifer. And so, Slifer is destroyed instead of Obelisk. With the attack concluded, Ra returns back to the grave. However, Marik activates his Surprise Attack from Beyond. This lets him repeat the battle phase he just conducted. and even bring back any monsters he summoned that turn. The battle phase 2 begins, and Ra returns to the field. Unable to pay 1,000 life points for Immortal Phoenix mode, Marik resorts to its second effect form instead, paying all of his life points except for one to increase its attack. Yugi, having waited for this moment, activates his set spell, Soul Taker. Due to this card's effect, he can tribute an opponent's monster as if it was his own. However, Marik will gain 1,000 life points as a result. Believing Yugi plans to tribute Ra while Marik is fused with it, Yugi reveals that Ra is not his target. Instead, it's his Egyptian God Slime. Since God Slime is a fusion monster, due to Battle City rules, it is classed as 2 monsters. And so, Yugi tributes God Slime to activate Obelisk's special effect. Now he can destroy all monsters the opponent controls, and then deal 4,000 damage. However, Marik has one final play. He tributes his 2 other monsters, Boganian and Swallowtail Spike Lizard, and pays all of his life points again apart from 1 to increase Ra's attack. Marik then activates his class system. This card makes it so that if he is attacked by a monster who just used an effect, it can prevent that monster from attacking if its level does not exceed the level of its attack target. Since Ra and Obelisk both share the level of 10, Obelisk's level isn't higher, and so the attack is cancelled. Now, with more attack points than Obelisk the Tormentor, Marik uses Ra to destroy Obelisk in battle. However, Yugi activates his Magical Dimension. This card's effect can only be activated if he controls a spellcaster monster, and an opponent's monster has just declared an attack. By tributing 2 monsters he controls, he can negate the attack and special summon 1 spellcaster monster in his hand. However, that spellcaster will be destroyed during the end phase. Yugi, taking a play right out of Kaiba's book, tributes his Gazelle, the king of mythical beasts, and his own Egyptian god, Obelisk the Tormentor, in order to summon his ace monster, Dark Magician. Since Obelisk left the field, Ra's attack fizzles, due to the sacrifice escape ruling of Battle City. Despite the fact the winged dragon of Ra will now go back to the grave at the end of the battle phase, Yugi makes an extra final play. He does this in order to purge Yami Marik from Marik's body. The card he activates is Ragnarok. This card can only be activated if there are 2 magicians on the field. Yugi must now banish every monster from his hand, deck, and graveyard in order to banish every monster the opponent currently controls. Ragnarok resolves uncontested. Every monster in Yugi's hand, deck, and graveyard emerges, and all of them bum rush Ra and Marik together. With the combined might of every single one of Yugi's cards, they all drag Ra and Marik into the banish zone. Since evil Marik was fused with Ra, 99% of his soul is purged. With this catastrophic damage to Yami Marik's soul, good Marik is able to retake control of his body. Now in control, Marik decides to end the duel on his terms. He places his hand over his deck, signifying he has forfeited the duel. The last of Marik's life points drop to 0, and the final 1% of Yami Marik's soul is purged for good. Yugi wins the duel. And with that, the undisputed Battle City Duel Monsters champion is Yugi Moto. Congratulations, Yugi! You have earned this. And well done to all of our other competitors. I hope you all enjoyed this big, long analysis of the Battle City Finals. I think it started from episode 82 and finished on episode 142. I know there's a whole different season in the middle of this, but still, it was a lot to smush into one. But thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Catch you later.